I'm sorry, I'm not understanding. How can we move the legislative matter before
It's not coming
or
before.
after? Okay, I
It's
see. I'm
coming
sorry.
after 3A.
I see. Thank you, and I did second that.
Any additional speakers with respect to the agenda and just the slight reordering of the one item? Okay, hearing none, I'll move to calling the question. All those in favor and opposed, that's carried unanimously. Okay, and that takes us on to the next item of our agenda, which is the public hearing. So I will get my script ready.
As a point of order, please.
Yes, you can see your point of order.
Yeah, I'll be declaring conflict for the general reason it could affect my property value. Thank you. On this item.
Okay, so just noting that Councillor Savage is leaving the meeting. And can we leave the door open or do we need to close that door? Okay, sure, thank you. All right, so good evening. On behalf of council, I'd like to welcome everybody watching the live stream, participating in the public hearing remotely via Zoom and in the council chamber. This public hearing is being conducted by electronic means pursuant to Local Government Act, Community Charter, and the Council Procedure Bylaw for the purpose of council to receive and consider input from all persons who believe that their interest in property is affected by proposed District of Lantzville Official Community Plan Bylaw number 150/2019 amendment, open bracket 6671 and 665 or 85/6685B Harwood Drive, close bracket, bylaw number 313/2022, and District of Lantzville zoning bylaw number 180/2020 amendment, open bracket 6671 and 6685/6685B Harwood Drive, close bracket, bylaw number 314/2022. The council chamber at Municipal Hall is located at 7192 Lantzville Road and is open with limited seating for members of the public who do not have the ability to connect to the public hearing electronically, so you can attend in person to watch and hear and ensure that you have an opportunity to be heard, subject to the posted occupant load established by the Lantzville Associations and Firefighters Committee, or I don't know, by the local fire department. We have adapted our public hearing procedures tonight to facilitate both remote and in-person participation. If you wish to speak and have not yet registered, we ask that you register now. For those of you watching via our live stream, please note that you can still join us hearing via Zoom webinar to speak to bylaws 313 and 314 by going to lantzville.ca, clicking on July 20th in the calendar, click View Details, and follow the instructions to register following the Zoom webinar link provided. And join the meeting before the hearing for bylaws 313 and 314 is closed. Those in the council chamber who wish to speak can register by signing the first opportunity speakers list located on the table at the entrance of the council chamber. Those who have pre-registered via Zoom will be given first opportunity to speak, and then those registered in the council chamber. All speakers lists will be managed by staff in person from the council chamber. All registered speakers will have up to 3 minutes to speak. I will let speakers know when you have 30 seconds left and when your time is up. Speakers participating via Zoom will also be asked to unmute by staff when your name is called and muted again once you have concluded your remarks. Do not put your phone on speaker. Do not hang up or leave the webinar if you wish to speak a second time. Members of the public will be provided an opportunity to be heard on matters related only to bylaws 313 and 314. No one will be, nor should they feel, discouraged or prevented from making their views known. Those in the gallery, please refrain from talking, turn off your cell phones, and clapping will not be permitted, so everyone has the opportunity to hear. Once the first opportunity speakers list has been exhausted, I will call for a second time speakers who have new information to present and wish to speak again. Remote participants who wish to speak again will be asked to use the Zoom raise hand feature to indicate that you would like to speak. This function can be found in your webinar controls. Speakers in the council chamber must sign the second opportunity speakers list. If you are participating by phone, the raise and lower hand function can be activated by pressing *9 on your keypad. During this public hearing, I ask that you restrict all your comments to the proposed bylaws and be as brief and concise as possible, respecting the 3 minutes time limit so that everyone who wishes to speak this evening has an opportunity. Speakers are permitted to speak more than once if they are providing new or additional information. Please note there can be a lag between the meeting live stream and the Zoom webinar. Following the close of the public hearing, council must not accept or consider further submissions or comments regarding proposed bylaws 313 and 314. If you have questions, please direct them to staff. I will now proceed to the public hearing for agenda item 3A. This public hearing is being convened to consider proposed District of Lantzville Official Community Plan Bylaw number 150-2019 amendment, open bracket 6671 and 6685/6685B Harwood Drive, close bracket, bylaw number 313-2022, and District of Lantzville zoning bylaw number 180-2020 amendment, open bracket 6671 and 6685/6685B Harwood Drive, close bracket, bylaw number 314-2022. At this public hearing, any person registered remotely or in the council chamber who believes that their interest in property is affected by proposed bylaws 313 and 314 shall be given an opportunity to be heard on the matters contained in the bylaws. However, it is important that all who speak at this meeting restrict their remarks to matters contained only in bylaws 313 and 314. It is my responsibility as chair of this hearing to ensure all remarks are so restricted. Members of council may, if they wish, ask you questions following your presentation. However, the main function of council members during this hearing is to listen to the views of the public. It is not the function of council during this hearing to debate the merits of the proposed bylaw with the public. As the chair of this hearing, I reserve the right to conclude any presentation that does not relate to bylaws 313 and 314 and becomes abusive or becomes repetitive of views that the speaker has already made known to council. After this public hearing has concluded, council may, without further notice, give whatever effect council believes proper to the representations made at this hearing. I will now call on the Director of Public and Community Services, Frank Limshu, to introduce the proposed bylaws. So,
Thank you, Your Worship.
Yeah.
I'm just going to share my screen. So, can everybody see that? Yes?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. So as you see in front of you on the screen, there are two properties involved with these proposed amendment bylaws. The two subject properties have a combined area of approximately 4.56 hectares or 11.25 acres. Both properties are currently designated estate residential under the existing OCP or official community plan. Both properties are currently zoned estate under the existing zoning bylaw. The application is to amend the OCP under proposed bylaw 313 from estate residential to residential, as well as to amend the zoning under proposed bylaw 314 from estate to a combination of R1, R2, and R7, as shown on the map to the right. So you see the area that would be rezoned R1 versus R2 versus R7. The proposed zoning is to accommodate development that would allow for up to 20 single-family lots and between 12 to 14 patio home units. Under the R1 zone, the minimum parcel size would be 2,000 square meters, which is approximately half acre, versus R2, where the minimum parcel size would be 1,300 square meters, approximately a third of an acre. And then there would be the R7 zone, which would allow for effectively a multifamily type of development with ground-oriented patio homes. Under the existing zoning, the existing zoning allows for up to the creation of 11 lots or 11 dwellings. Should the amendment bylaws be approved, it would increase the number of dwelling units or proposed dwelling units to 34 units. if approved, all the lots will be serviced with community water and community sewer. Lastly, I just wanted to there we go. So the applicant has put forward a community amenities package. And I know that the applicant is in the audience and will be making a presentation, so I won't speak in too much detail, but I wanted to just highlight the latest version of the proposed parking area at the end of Alls Road. So you'll see that there are approximately 8 parking spaces proposed within the existing road right-of-way. Currently, there is no formal parking in that area, and users of the trail, or folks that are looking to get access to the trail, simply park where there's a space available. The proposed parking area would formalize parking in that area, provide a bit more order for the neighborhood. So with that, I'll stop there. And as I said, the representative for the applicant is here, and it's my understanding that he's prepared to make a presentation as well.
Okay, thank you, Director Limshu. At this point, I will call on the applicant, Mr. Scott Mack, Townsite Planning, and you have up to 10 minutes. You're going to have to start right from the start.
Sure, no problem.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, Your Worship and members of council. My name is Scott Mack. I'm a registered professional planner and the managing partner for Townsite Planning. My address is 6670 Elm Road here in Lantzville. I'm here tonight to speak on behalf of my clients, the owners of 6671, 6685, and 6685B Harwood Drive, and our application to amend the OCP and rezone the subject properties, which total a little more than 11 acres in area. There are a number of reasons why we believe that council should support this application, and I would like to speak to a few of those this evening. The properties are currently designated estate within the OCP and also carry the same zoning designation. These designations support the creation of 1 acre lots, meaning that at present, the properties could likely be developed into an 8 to 10 or perhaps 11 lot subdivision. Townsite Planning was approached by the property owners over a year ago with a request that we assist them in their efforts to rezone the properties. They had specific development goals and wanted to engage someone who could help them bring this vision to reality. More specifically, they wanted to develop a project within which they could remain in their existing homes, integrated into the new development with new neighbors, many of which could be friends or family or other families they know from within the community. This vision included a very low-density residential development with a mix primarily of 1/3 and 1/2 acre lots, allowing for a range of lot sizes, along with a small seniors-oriented patio home development that would allow for the creation of smaller units with main floor living areas that were suited to retirees and those who are looking to downsize. There are many residents of Lantzville who find themselves in that situation, unable to continue to look after a larger yard and property, but at this point, their only option to find this type of housing is to leave the community. The owner's goal with the 1/3 to 1/2 acre lots, which makes up approximately 80% of the site, was to essentially mirror the surrounding neighborhoods on Spence's Way and Clark Crescent, et cetera, to the east and to the north. Both of which have either the same R1 or R2 zoning that we are proposing with this development, in order to integrate and blend into the existing neighborhood. We also discussed whether to locate the patio home development at the east or west end of the site, and decided ultimately to locate it at the east end in order to provide for a transition of the density away from Harwood Drive to the west end of the site, where it would then transition to the larger rural lots. Our proposal includes a total of 21 lots over these 11 acres, 20 of which would fall under the R1 and R2 zoning. The 2 acre lot at the southeast corner of the site would be zoned under a new R7 zone and would allow for a maximum of 14 small seniors-oriented patio homes that would be limited to a maximum of 1,600 square feet each. At a maximum of 21 lots and 34 units, this equates to an overall density of approximately 3 units per acre. Any suggestion that this is a Nanaimo-style development or that this represents high density should consider that the lowest suburban residential densities in most urban municipalities, where there's access to municipal services, would see the development of somewhere in the neighborhood of 100 to 200 units on 11 acres of land. This development is, of course, nowhere near those totals. We note as well that there have been a number of people who have referenced that the estate zoning was intended to act as a buffer from smaller R1 half-acre lots to the larger rural unserviced lands. However, it is interesting to note that this small block of 5 properties are the only properties that have this estate designation east of Superior Road, which is where 90% of the district's population resides. There are many other properties in the district, including in this immediate neighborhood, where this type of transition from R1 directly to rural lands exists without an intervening estate designation. So at the very least, this designation was not applied consistently. Again, all of the other estate zone properties in the district are located west of Superior Road and located a significant distance from any type of urban services. For example, Norma.
Well, I'm not really sure. It's streaming.
That was off, but it's back.
That's streaming. That's right. I just can't see.
Oh, okay, just came off.
It's your presence.
Delay the hands.
All right.
So it's live, just so you know.
And it's 6:21, recessed at 6:18, so I think that's.
Well, that would have taken up, like, you'd have to have gone to a break. Right? So the fact that it's something here is tripped, right?
Ron's gonna be in tomorrow, like I. Ron's in Kelsey again.
Yeah, that's kind of a weird one, because the TV's kicked back. Like, there was like no power, there's no power to the
And so
mics.
previously that was a problem with our laptop,
Yeah,
and we changed the laptop, so.
it's weird that that power was completely
Yeah.
on.
Yes. Unexplained.
Okay, I'm gonna call this meeting back to order. We'll just wait for Councilor Proctor. Okay, good. Through to you, Mr. Mack, you can keep.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can you advise me where I'm at in terms of
So
time?
you're at about 4 minutes into your presentation.
Thank you.
Okay.
So carrying on, in addition, this small group of properties in this area are the only development properties along the full length of the entire Ware, Alds, and Harwood corridor, all the way from Lantzville Road to the southernmost point in the future phases of the foothills, that are not zoned or designated to allow for lots that are half acre or smaller. This entire corridor also has direct access to municipal sewer and water, making these lands easily serviced and making more efficient use of very expensive and already existing infrastructure. On this point, one of my recommendations to my clients was that we propose this development as a bare land strata rather than fee simple. This means that all of the on-site infrastructure, including the roads and the pipe, the maintenance burden and long-term upkeep and replacement requirements for the district. Equals 23 times 3,000, which is a total of $69,000.
Okay, Mr. Mack, sorry I have to interrupt you, but it looks like we may be encountering more technical difficulties here.
We lost the live stream for a minute.
Carry on or back up?
Do we know approximately to go, maybe?
Okay.
So I don't know if you're able to, I apologize.
Sure. No,
but,
that's a problem. Hey.
Maybe back it up just about a minute.
technical
to your
glitches
Oh,
happen.
now we're,
It's back up.
so we just lost live stream while I was talking?
But it's back up. So try it while you can.
Okay, so staff is gonna keenly watch the live stream and we'll try and address it as it comes up.
I'll back up a
So
little bit.
let's maybe back up about a minute into your presentation.
I'll back up to the discussion around community amenity contributions. We have an understanding that is part of a rezoning process. And to this end, we have proposed to the district that we would provide a cash contribution of $3,000 per each additional unit over and above what could already be developed under current zoning. Therefore, 34 proposed units minus the 11 that could already be developed equals 23 new or additional units at $3,000 would be a cash contribution of $69,000. In addition, we also recognize this property is directly adjoining one of the key access points for the Copley Ridge Trail Network. As a nearby resident, I know that this is a popular community amenity due to the significant number of vehicles parked near the end of Alds Road on a very regular basis. We noted as part of our review of these properties that there is no formal parking for vehicles at this time and that most vehicles are forced to park on the shoulder of Alds Road. This section of Alds Road is quite narrow, as is the shoulder, meaning that most vehicles are parked well into the travel lane, which could present concerns with regard to access and in particular emergency access. To this end, we felt that the provision of a new, more formal parking area at the end of Alds Road would be a significant benefit for the community and help to improve this end of the property. And therefore, we're proposing to provide an 8-stall parking lot within the adjoining right-of-way at the end of Alds Road. We did receive, as per Mr. Limshew's comments, some preliminary feedback on the preliminary design and made some adjustments to accommodate those concerns with regard to property access and location of the parking. And then finally, in terms of amenities, we're proposing to provide some enhanced landscaping over and above what would typically be required as part of the frontage improvements on Harwood Drive in order to improve the frontage of the property and replace the 2x4 rail fence and the invasive species that have taken over the boulevard area. Overall, we believe that our amenity package has a total value of approximately $120,000 or roughly $5,700 per lot. In terms of park dedication, I know that's also been a significant item of discussion. These properties are included within the growth containment boundaries in the OCP. However, the OCP, which does designate or provide designations for where the district wishes to see parks, does not include a designation for a park in this block of lands. Based on this, we were advised by the approving officer that we should propose a cash in lieu contribution as part of this application. Having said this, there is a wetland and drainage course along the southern boundary of the property that has been confirmed by a QEP, including the setback areas which will be fenced in order to protect this environmentally sensitive area. This will provide protection for approximately 10% of the overall property. In addition, we have discussed with the owners the desirability of maintaining and protecting existing mature vegetation, particularly at property boundaries and where strategically it makes sense in terms of building siting. And we feel that there may be an opportunity to protect a further 10% of the existing tree canopy on the site. We're also providing a trail connection through the site adjacent to the roadway to connect pedestrians via statutory right-of-way from Harwood Drive across to the access to the Copley Ridge trails. In terms of public consultation, as per the district requirements, we held an in-person public information meeting on June 23rd at Costin Hall. The meeting was advertised on our notification sign, and we sent invitations to property owners within 200 meters, which was approximately 50 residents. We had approximately 10 to 12 residents show up at the meeting, and interestingly, not a single voice of opposition to the project. The only questions or concerns that were raised by 2 residents were with regard to the timing for the Foothills development to provide a roundabout at the intersection of Alds and Harwood. In addition, as noted previously, we made some adjustments to the plan to address some of the adjoining neighborhood concerns. And then finally, the property owners, my clients, canvassed their neighbors in recent weeks, showing them a copy of the proposed plan and asking whether they'd be prepared to support the application. A total of 41 nearby residents signed the petition in support of the application. We believe that this shows that there is strong support from the neighborhood and buy-in for this proposal. Of note, all of these signatures are from owners who live directly within the surrounding neighborhoods, Spence's Way, Alds Road, Harwood, Clark Crescent, etc. In addition, there were also a number of individual letters submitted in support of the application from a number of other community residents. From a financial standpoint, I know that's another issue that council discusses regularly in terms of the impact of development. I wanted to address that briefly. As noted, we're providing $120,000 in amenity contributions. In addition to that, on the assumption that the parkland was provided via cash in lieu, we estimate conservatively that the value of that contribution would be at least $200,000. The value would be determined at the time of development as per legislation based on an appraisal of the lands. In terms of DCCs under current zoning, the project would generate approximately $200,000 in DCCs. By comparison, the application we have proposed would generate $600,000 in DCCs, a 3-fold increase in DCC revenues. Similarly, there would be a 2.5 to 3 times increase in municipal property taxes as a result of the additional development on the lands. Again, as previously noted, because the development as proposed would create virtually no new municipal infrastructure, a much larger portion of the municipal property taxes would be available as general revenues and is much more revenue positive than most other developments.
Okay, about 30 seconds.
Fair enough, thank you. In short, between the amenities, DCCs, and parkland contributions, we believe that the value of the project is in excess of $1 million over and above the increased property taxes in perpetuity. In closing, I'd like to come back to my opening point about the owner's vision for the project. All 6 of these owners, 3 existing homes, have remained steadfast in their position that they want to advance a project that they will be happy to be part of as long-term residents in their respective homes and wish to create a development that aligns with much of the character and attributes that attracted them to Lantzville in the first place. We don't believe that it ever made sense that these lands were excluded from the residential designation in the OCP, given their location and access to urban services, surrounding and adjacent land uses, and especially in view of the fact that the principle of using the estate designation for buffering from rural lands is not being used elsewhere in the eastern half of the district. In closing, we respectfully request that council advance our application and provide third reading, following which we are happy to work with staff to finalize the wording for a Section 219 covenant to secure the commitments outlined in our proposal and in our presentation this evening. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to address them.
Okay, thank you. Through to council, is there any questions for the presenter? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on in the public hearing. So at this time, I will be calling for the first time persons registered remotely and in the council chamber who believe that their interest in property is affected by proposed bylaw 313 and 314. Please wait for your name to be called, and when it is your turn, please state your full name and civic address. Staff will proceed through the remote registrant list first, and then through the council chamber registrant list. When it is your turn, staff will call your name, and you'll be able to give us your input regarding the proposed bylaws. You will have up to 3 minutes to speak. I will let speakers know when you have 30 seconds left and when your time is up. So I believe staff is just collecting the in-person list now, and then through to Director Coates, if you can call upon the first remotely registered registrant.
And we do not have anybody registered remote.
Okay. Well, that makes life simple. So through to staff, if you can call upon the first in-person
And if,
registered.
The following people could get lined up and ready to speak. The first one is Susan Cormy, and the next one after that is Joan Jones.
Good evening. My name is Susan Cormy. I live at 7130 Sebastian Road in Lantzville. I have submitted a letter already to you.
Okay, point of privilege is being called, sorry.
I'm sorry, I can't hear.
Oh.
You have to get real close to the mic and hear.
Okay.
Thank
Can
you.
you hear me now?
Yes,
Oh, I can hear me too. Thank you.
And Councilor Gusselberg, if you can turn your microphone off too, please.
Now I'll start again. Thank you. My name is Susan Cormy. I live at 7130 Sebastian Road in Lantzville. I've already submitted a letter to you outlining a number of reasons why I feel that this is an inappropriate amendment at this time. Most importantly, in the OCP, it states that estate residential lands are meant to act as buffer lands between the residential and rural lands. They're not meant to be infill lands. As this erosion continues of these larger lots, Lantzville will become more and more urban, and the level of development is not one that is desired by the residents. So I'm opposed to this application. I just want to add, in addition to my letter, that when you became councillors, you made a commitment to the municipality to put the interest of the community above all other interests. So to any councillor who votes in favor of this amendment application, it seems that you are placing the interest of the property owners and developer above the interest of the community, and you are therefore no longer meeting your mandate to uphold the best interests of this community. There is no reasonable planning rationale to support this application, and as a result, I hope that you will deny this application. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll call upon the next person registered. So again, just name and address for the record, please. And then through to Director Coates, who's the next person on your list?
And the next person will be Jonathan Lerner, followed by Brian Blood.
Before I begin, can I just ask if Councillor Proctor is present or not? I don't see her video on.
I honestly don't know because the video is not on. Okay, now I can see.
Point of privilege. I plan on leaving my video off during the hearing because it's not part of the hearing watching me. I will be sitting here as our procedure by law outlines. And I will let you know as the procedure by law outlines if I leave the room.
Okay, thank you. So we've been told she is present. Thanks.
May I begin?
Yes, name and address for the record, please.
Thank you. My name is Joan Jones. I live at 7255 Ellesmere Drive. Thank you, Your Worship and members of council, for the opportunity to speak. I am unable to support this application. This council rezoned the Harwood properties to estate residential in 2000. 5-acre lots can now be subdivided into lots no smaller than 1 acre. Owners can downsize, sell most of their land for a nice retirement plan, and have support from the community. Today, we have a proposal with R1 and R2 zoning, and also a new R7 that permits about 7 times the density allowed by the current zoning. This is not semi-rural. It is contrary to good planning practices, which call for density pockets near essential services. It goes against the guidelines of our official community plan. It raises the question, who does this application benefit? About 6 months ago, council requested staff to prepare a tree bylaw which would address the rapid loss of Lantzville's tree canopy due to the practice of clear-cutting land prior to development. The tree bylaw has not been put in front of council, so could council please require that significant tree protection be added to this application? In the developer's report called Project Summary Letter of Rationale, we read, quote, "The district has not identified the need for any dedicated parkland," end quote. Well, the provincial government and our official community plan mandate for parkland. Why is the district, again, advising developers to give cash in lieu and not any green space? The removal of trees combined with the total absence of parkland generates a significant increase in water runoff. The report cited above advises rain gardens, swales, and/or storm ponds as solutions if needed. They are not shown in the concept plan. The report continues to say that, if required, these would most likely be accommodated with an outfall and connection to the large existing wetland located across Harwood Drive. What we see here is no plan, but if one is needed, it will include taking untreated stormwater with pesticides, fertilizers, and
You have
other
30 seconds.
pollutants and pipe this water into the existing wetland, an area of designated parkland, an area beavers call home. Responsible planning? No. Thank you. I'll save the rest of my comments for the next time I speak.
Okay, thank you. Next speaker, if you can come to the podium, please. And again, name and address for the record.
Hello, my name is, can you hear me? It's kind of cutting out.
Yes, we can hear it.
Okay, my name is Jonathan Lerner. My address is 8354 Bayview Park Drive in Lantzville. I just have a couple of comments of note for this application in ways I think that it could be improved to address concerns. One is with the runoff. I noted in the application when I first read it, I was pleased to see that it mentioned the requirement of the OCP to manage the runoff pre and post development. However, when I actually delve deeper, it seems to only show options without actual requirements for the rain gardens and other things mentioned. So I believe that should be mandated in here. Additionally, I have some concerns with a brand new zoning of R7. I noted the applicant's mention that there would be strata housing that would cover the cost of maintenance of the roads on site. However, when one adds that many residents, potentially hundreds, to Lantzville, there will undoubtedly be a cost for maintenance and services around the development. So I believe the community asset contributions are not far enough to sustain that. So those are my two concerns that I wanted to note at this time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next speaker. And again, through to Director Coates, if there's any additional people registered, we can queue them up, please.
We do not have anybody new registered for
Okay, thank you.
online. And so the next speaker is Brian Blood, followed by Hans Larson.
Yeah, I meant just in person.
My name is Brian Blood. I live at 7075 Correct Road. The gold rush is on. How much density can we pan from the land before the sanity-restoring election in October? This application feels like a lost cause, but my conscience require that I say this for my own peace of mind, and to say I told you so with just about everyone who lives here now comes to regret this density madness. Density, 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 density means one thing to the property owner developer, and that is money. More density, more money, simple and defensible. These people are in business and are not social workers. They are doing what it is in their nature to do. It doesn't help current residents who just want the community values respected. That people, I was going to say idiots, like our new premier in waiting, David Eby, also espouses density, 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 density is good for you, and the natural landscape is a theme park. I had an interesting conversation with an acquaintance, a retired professional planner, on a hike last week. We talked about Lantzville, of course. Density, 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 he said. I asked what he thought about a majority of residents who like things the way they are. And shouldn't democracy prevail? Well, he prevaricated, that is unfortunate when the majority is wrong. That sums up the arrogance of professional planners. Less change means less need for the planning function. It is just like the property owner's profit motive, self-serving. But what about this council, Your Worship? The majority voting record suggests a foregone conclusion this evening. In advancing this application to this point, and it seems beyond, what are they responding to? Helping landowners become wealthy? Stroking planners' egos? Where are residents in all this? Mr. Scott made, I think, a fallacious argument. I live on a half-acre lot, so, why shouldn't I support this half-acre lot. This development would look good in some parts of the district. But because I live on a half-acre lot, doesn't mean that the entire land surface of the district should be zoned down to half acres or less.
You have
This
30
was-
seconds.
Sorry?
Or you have 30 seconds.
Okay. This zoning was put in place with public participation for a reason. And if this development is approved, it truly is open season on any zoning anywhere in the district. The OCP is meaningless, zoning is meaningless, and the people of Lantzville are being treated like they're just
And that's your time, Mr. Blood.
fools.
Okay, so I'll call upon the next speaker. Again, just name and address for the record. And is there any additional in-persons or people in person that are needing to be queued up?
There's no additional first-time speakers.
Yeah, thank you.
We do have second time. Susan Cormier would be up first.
Yes, go ahead.
So my name is Hans Larson, 7010 Owen Road. Mayor and council, based on the information that I've been able to ascertain regarding this proposal, my spouse and I are opposed to this OCP amendment and rezoning for these two properties in Upper Lantzville. I've been hampered by the fact that I wasn't invited or notified to attend the applicant's public information meeting, being an affected party but not part of the neighborhood, surrounding neighborhood, held the day after first and second reading of the relevant bylaws, or been able to find and consider the attendees' feedback from that meeting. Estate residential was designed as a transition buffer between the residential zoning and rural designations. Although this proposal appears to provide a modicum of transition from east to west, it is right next to the very edge of the rural area and the hydro right-of-way, and the average unit density in this proposal is 1/3 of an acre, which is pretty much the same as in the adjacent residential areas to the north and the east. OCP section 52.7.3 density bonus is explained in part 2, section 8 of the OCP. The district may apply a bonus density in residential areas outside special plan areas without amendment to this plan where the development plan includes parkland acceptable to the district in addition to the required 5% required under the Local Government Act and a community charter or community amenity contribution. For the third time now, an application doesn't meet this requirement of the OCP for additional parkland or cash in lieu, in addition to a community amenity contribution in a density bonusing situation such as this, tripling the density from 11 to 34 units. While the applicants are proposing to provide several additional community amenity contributions, this does not negate the requirement for additional parkland under sections 5.2.7.3. By calculation, the applicants are requesting a density increase of 4.9 units per hectare. Under the 2005 OCP, this large an increase would not be permitted. 2.5 units per hectare was the maximum. But even if there were no limit, it would require the applicant to provide 34.4% total parkland in additional parkland. That's 29.4% additional. And yet here you are on a path to accept the minimum statutory requirement of just 5%. I'll leave my rest of my comments till my second speaking opportunity. Thank you.
All right, so through to Director Coates, is there anybody registered remotely at this point?
No, we have not had any new registrations.
Thank you. So
And
we'll
the next speaker for second round after Susan Cormier is Joan Jones.
Hello, Susan Cormier, 7130 Sebastian Road. I'm just curious, I didn't hear that seniors' housing was being secured in any manner. It's being proposed as seniors' housing, so how are we, is it through the covenant process that's being done? I don't know. What about affordable housing too? You know, lots of seniors don't have a lot of money, and going this is a way to provide them some housing. My other question was concerning the townhouse portions. Is it going to be designated within a development permit area? Because how are you going to secure some of these things and ensure that the form and character of the buildings will be suitable for the surrounding area? I didn't see that. As far as the parking lot for the marshalling area, I think that's great. I mean, we obviously need to get that fixed up, but why are you stopping there? Why aren't we doing it right? How is it being designed? Is it going to be paved? Is it going to be fencing? Is there going to be some sort of washroom? What's happening? Is there going to be an in and out, or are people going to be backing out into the road where people might be walking and hiking? So there seems to be something missing there. And as far as the OCP and parkland, this is going to residential lands with a higher density. We need parkland, and we need more parkland than just 5%. Thank you.
Okay, I'll call the next speaker to the podium, please.
And the next second round speaker after Joan Jones is Jonathan Lerner.
Thank you.
Sorry, he's withdrawn. It would be Brian Blood.
Thank you for the second opportunity to speak. Just with respect
Just
to...
name and address for the record, sorry.
Sure, I am still Joan Jones, residing at 7255 Ellesmere Drive. With respect to the public engagement process, a former speaker mentioned that there are, former speaker mentioned that there are 41 signatures on a petition. I would just like to note that there was no petition offered to the residents of this community, so we really have no way of knowing how many would have signed a petition if they had the opportunity. However, the community association did set up a tent for 5 hours to communicate with residents, give them some information on this development and others. And during that time, 54 residents signed a letter adding their own comments to their opposition to this development. I have a couple of broad questions for council. Is it ethical for 3 councillors using their majority vote to rush this application through approval processes if their actions are not supported by the majority of residents? With elections so near, should this council put this and other major decisions on hold, leave them for a new council, a council which, by our democratic process, will represent the majority? Thank you.
Okay, I'll call upon the next speaker.
Mr. Hans Larson.
Thank you. Hans Larson, 7010 Owen Road. This also seems an inappropriate location for seniors 55+ housing. Although they didn't mention it, perhaps the applicants are hoping that the proposed Foothills Commercial Village would have the services that these seniors need, besides a coffee shop, and only a short trip up the hill from this proposal. Does not the fact that these properties are not in the sewer service area upset the planning that has already taken place in order to ensure the orderly build-out of the infrastructure? Are downstream vacant property owners being placed at risk of not having any capacity should they wish to develop in the future? Finally, you must be aware that development cost charges, DCCs, are restricted funds that are intended to be used to mitigate the off-site impacts of development, and the magnitude of these funds is closely related to the impact created. According to the October 2018 DCC bylaw update technical report, for every dollar collected in DCCs, an obligation is created on the taxpayers to contribute approximately $1.70, including the 1% assist factor. Therefore, an extra $320,000 in DCCs will create an obligation of $544,000 on the taxpayers of Lantzville. As has been previously so succinctly stated in some other area official community plans, residents, through their participation in the planning and public hearing process, are the final arbiters of community values. Thank you for your careful consideration of our position on this important matter.
And we'll have the next speaker to the podium, please. Or do we have none left? Okay. So the second
You would
time
call for the
speakers list is exhausted.
Second time
Okay.
speakers list only had
So,
two.
and then there's nobody registered remotely.
No, so now you would call for your third.
Oh, yes, I understand. Yep. So now I will call for the third time speakers. So we'll grab the list and then we'll proceed through the list. And I'm just going to read from my script. So before declaring this hearing for proposed bylaws 313 and 314 closed, I would like to reiterate that following the close of this hearing, council must not accept or consider further submissions or comments regarding proposed bylaws 313 and 314. I'll call for a third and final time for persons registered remotely and in council chambers who have new information to present and wish to speak again. So we have the third time speakers list and, and again, through the staff in this short period of time, nobody is
We have nobody registered. to vote.
remotely. Okay, thank you.
And the first speaker for the third round is Jonathan Lerner, to be followed by Susan Cormy.
Okay, thank you.
And followed by Joan, if everybody could be ready at the back, so we don't have to wait, that's great.
Hello, it's Jonathan Lerner from 8354 Bayview Park Drive. Again, my focus here is on looking at applications and what has been presented tonight and seeing how concerns can be addressed. One thing I noted was that there is a talk about how this proposed development borders areas that are higher density, and therefore this is a natural transition. However, by that logic, if this property development is approved, then by that logic, the next property over could say the same thing. And then the property after that, and so on until all of Lantzville is R7. So my thought process here is that there has to be some sort of respect for the OCP and respect on perhaps not allowing this to go all the way up to R7, where we're seeing that transition lost. Thank you.
Okay, and the next speaker, again, name and address for the record.
Hello again, Susan Cormy, 7130 Sebastian Road. I just thought there's some clarification needed on the 1 acre versus 1 hectare size parcels. These parcels are not in community sewer, and I believe under the federal guidelines for being able to get grants for water and sewer, its minimum parcel size is 1 hectare if you don't have all the services. And I think that should be clarified. Also, I just wanted to add that, we have north winds, south winds that don't have water. They're existing lots, and I know there's lots of people up there that are, 3 or 4 parcels are on one well. So I really think that should be more a priority than adding more new parcels when we have existing parcels that desperately need our community services. Thank you.
Okay, and next speaker, again, name and address.
My name's Joan Jones, 7255 Ellesmere Drive. I'm just very concerned about what I guess we would call fair procedure for this application. It came to council not long ago. I think it was the 20th of June, and passed first and second reading. The next night, there was an information session. I do acknowledge that residents up in the Harwood area received notice of this, but other residents in the community certainly did not have time to receive, read, or even get. I certainly know that I didn't receive any information on it. I simply didn't know about it. I suspect many people didn't, so I'm really not sure that information session was appropriately conducted to really allow residents to first get informed about the application and then comment on it. And that leads me just to reiterate the comment I made before, that if we want a fair democratic process, this needs to wait for the next elections when residents will be able to speak their voice at the polls, and the new council can deal with this and many other applications. Thank you.
And are there any additional registered people on the list?
Next registered speaker for a third time, Scott Mack.
Name and address, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Your Worship. Scott Mack, 6670 Elm Road. I was furiously writing down comments and trying to make note of many of the questions and comments that were provided in order to provide some responses and hopefully address some concerns. First of all, at the rezoning stage, it is very typical to provide for conceptual plans and discussion around the nature of the development that is proposed. It's at the subdivision stage where the detailed plans, the calculations are made with regard to stormwater management. As it was noted, the stormwater management would address the pre-development, post-development requirements. Part of that also includes a stormwater quality as well as quantity requirements. And so water quality issues will be addressed in terms of the water that leaves the site. Secondly, in response to the question about a form of character development permit, yes, my understanding is that the patio home site as a multifamily site would require a form of character development permit. We have no concerns with that. I was unclear on how or why it was deemed important to diminish the value of the 41 residents that signed a petition in support of the application. I think the opinion and the input from those residents is just as valuable as the input provided by the 56 who signed a petition against it. Everybody has an opportunity to provide support for or against an application, and that input should be viewed equal. Secondly, I certainly in principle agree with the idea that in a lot of cases seniors developments are best oriented close to a significant number of services. However, not all seniors, and I can tell you my parents would take offense to the suggestion that they would have to be in proximity to certain services. They're still very active, well into their 70s, and would be able to function and would quite happily live in the patio home development that we have proposed. The capacity for the sewer system has been reviewed by Coors Engineering, which is the district's engineer on behalf of the district, and they did not have any concerns with capacity downstream in the system. This notion that the OCP has been decided, I think is a fallacy. OCPs are not set in stone. They are not intended to be adopted and set on a shelf and sit on a shelf and be forgotten. They are living documents. They are intended to evolve over time as the community evolves and community needs and expectations change. As we've seen as one single example, the housing market in this community has changed in an overwhelmingly dramatic fashion
30 seconds.
in the last couple of years. And so I think it's important to understand that OCP amendments are both necessary and part of the process. Wholeheartedly agree with the notion that as a resident that Southwind and Northwind areas should be provided with safe drinking water. However, I don't believe that relates to this particular application in any way. And then finally, in terms of notification, the district's only requirement is that we place a notice on the sign with regard to the public information meeting. So the fact that we sent 50 targeted invitations
And
to
that's your
surrounding
3 minutes.
neighborhood was over and above that requirement. Thank you.
Okay, additional speakers registered.
I think at this point you could just call if there's any further speakers.
Okay. So is there anyone else who has not registered remotely or in the council chambers who wishes to speak? Okay, for those of you who are watching via our live stream, please note that you can join this meeting via the Zoom webinar to speak to bylaws 313 and 314 by going to lantzville.ca, clicking on the July 20th in the calendar, click view details and follow the instructions to register following the Zoom webinar link provided, and join the meeting now before the hearing for bylaws 313 and 314 is closed. Those in the council chamber who wish to speak can register by signing the speakers list located on the table at the entrance of the council chamber. So I'm just going to allow for a little pause, just in case we do have anybody that's registered wishes to register remotely? Okay, before declaring this hearing for bylaws 313 and 314 closed, I would like to reiterate that following the close of this hearing, council must not accept or consider further submissions or comments from the public regarding bylaws 313 and 314. Seeing no one who wishes to speak, well, we do have a person that wishes to speak, so I will retract that. Through to the speaker, please state your name and address again for the record.
Hans Larson, 7010 Owen Road. I just wanted to respond to something that Mr. Mack said about they had followed the district's requirements for notification of a public information meeting. If that's meant to make any of us feel any better, it doesn't. I don't know where the fault lies, but I think maybe sometimes doing the minimum is just not good enough. I think everybody in Lantzville should have had the opportunity to know that this development proposal was before council. I know that this particular development proposal went this far very quickly with council. As we said, the public information meeting occurred the day after the proposal was given first and second reading. And I haven't seen the petition, the 41 names. I finally found the summary feedback. It was at the very end, the very last item on public input on the district's website. So I guess in the end, what I'm saying is that I ask very kindly that the district look at these kinds of things. If the proponents and the developers aren't willing to do it for us just because it's the right thing to do, then please, the district needs to look after all of our interests. Thank you.
Director Coates?
Yes, as council knows, in order to allow the public to submit, we have a deadline of 12 noon. Immediately following the 12 noon deadline, the correspondence, including the letter that had the petition, was posted to our website. It's on green sheets in front of council. It's also in the binder at the table. If anybody wants to take a look at it, I don't know if you want to recess for a few minutes for them to have a chance to look at that.
No, we're not going to recess, and I'll reserve comment on that until later. Okay, so is there anybody else that wishes to speak before I put my head down and continue to read? Okay, seeing none, I will continue to read. So seeing that no one wishes to speak, I declare the public hearing for District of Lantzville Official Community Plan Bylaw Number 150-2019 Amendment, open bracket 6671 and 6685/665B Harbor Drive, close bracket Bylaw Number 313-2022 and District of Lantzville zoning bylaw number 180-2020 amendment, open bracket 6671 and 6685/665B Harwood Drive, close bracket bylaw number 314-2020 close. Thank you to the public for participating. Council will consider third reading of District of Lantzville Official Community Plan Bylaw number 150-2019 amendment for 6671 and 6685/665B Harwood Drive and bylaw number 313-2022 and District of Lantzville zoning bylaw number 180-2020 amendment for 6671 and 6685/665B Harwood Drive, bylaw number 314-2020 under item. Well, it's following next, so item 7 has been moved in our agenda under for legislative matters for this evening's agenda. So that concludes the public hearing. All right, so through to council. Again, at the adoption of the agenda, we did move item 7A to follow the public hearing. So we're under legislative matters. So we have bylaw number 313. And this obviously is a recommendation as subject to public hearing input. So is someone prepared to make that motion? Okay, go ahead, Councillor Wilson.
The District of Lantzville Official Community Plan Bylaw number 150, 2019, amendment in bracket 6671 and 6685/6685B, Harwood Drive, bylaw number 313, 2022, be given third reading.
Okay, and do we have a seconder to that? So second by Councillor Gusselbreck. So through to the mover, if you wish to speak to it first.
I mean, for me, okay. I mean, 4 years on council now, and we've gone through a lot and looked at, we've had reports put forth to us, and one of the biggest, things that I look back on being a councillor is having how we've had to increase taxes like we've had to. And a lot of that, when I look at this particular development, I see a development that's being proposed within a neighborhood. It's contiguous with the other homes around, and it will be on the grid, and it allows for more homes within an area to pay into the grid. It provides as well an opportunity for smaller homes, some seniors housing, and we're also looking at it to be contiguous with the Winchelsea neighborhood that's right next door. I don't look at this particular development like it's, super insane density here. I think that it's a very reasonable amount that's proposed, and for that reason, I support this bylaw.
Okay, and through
Or
to the
amendment,
seconder.
rather.
Councillor Gusselbreck, if you wish.
Thank you, Chair. So there were some comments this evening. Public was allowed to speak. We had speakers. We have included in our agenda our letters to council, as well as a letter, a petition against, and a petition in favor of. I've read all of those. In response to some of the things I heard tonight, I'll just go through the list here as I wrote them down. Why cash in lieu instead of green space? Well, the first reason is that when we approved the zoning bylaw, we specifically marked areas of Lantzville where council wanted to see parks either expanded or created. For example, when we approved the subdivision down on Dickinson Road, that was an area that was not designated for acquiring parkland. And in my opinion, the reason was that we have May Bennett Park right across the street, which is a major park, doesn't belong to Lantzville, but it's used quite a bit by Lantzville residents. In this case, once again, this area was not designated as a park, acquiring parkland. Why? I think the answer is obvious. There's a 1,200 acre park, 200 meters as the crow flies to the south. That is going to be the largest park in the whole RDN by a magnitude of 2 once that is developed, and whether an agreement is perhaps made with the RDN to co-manage it with Lantzville. That's a major, major undertaking. So that's the reason. So when you don't have a designated area, our bylaws say that a developer in a rezoning must contribute a 5% cash value. And that's what's being done here. And I hear that from Mr. Mack that the estimate is somewhere $200,000. And that's good, because residents understand that we just acquired a 7 or 8 acre marine park, the first of its kind in Lantzville. That is going to require a lot of attention. It's going to require more manpower to get it up and running, to get it open, first of all. And so these monies that are acquired, this 5%, can be used to develop that park. And that's going to be a beautiful park once it's up and running. I don't believe there's going to be hundreds of new residents in this subdivision. I think we're talking 34 units. The average number of people in a house nowadays is just over 2, so there'll be 68 to 70 new residents using this area. I heard a complaint about density, that it only makes the developers rich. Density provides housing. Density and diversity of housing provides not only homes for people in this community, provides jobs. Right now, over the last year and a half, we've had over 100 homes built, mostly in the foothills. And when you go up there, who do you see? You see local builders, local Lantzville builders building. You see local Lantzville people working. And that's what we need, are jobs and housing. So Mr. Mack talked about the OCP. The OCP contemplates amendments. It's a living document. When we passed the OCP at the beginning of this term, we put mechanism in place that if a particular development exceeded a proposed guideline, not a density list, but a proposed guideline, we provided a mechanism that could be exceeded. In this case, what we have is what everyone that I've talked to and heard during the OCP process talk about, and that is smaller home sizes for seniors. That's crucial. Not that we only care about seniors, we certainly care about young families, and we want to see housing for young people, either who grew up here and want to come back or who would like to move to this area. I don't have any particular knowledge of what assets seniors have in this town, whether they're scraping by, but if they do own a home, the average house price is $1 million. So if they're downsizing, they already have an asset that they can sell or cash in and move, something the young people don't have. They're starting new, they're acquiring jobs, they're starting a profession. They don't have that nest egg to do. So, but I don't know what the, what the economic circumstances of everybody in this town is. Now, one thing that I heard some mention that about water and sewer, and I think Mr. Mack answered the question that there's not going to be any problem downstream of water use. We have lots of water. That football has been taken away from those who kicked it back and forth for 25 some odd years here. We have redundancy of water. We have 2 new reservoirs in the foothills. But what hasn't been mentioned is that these homes, these 34 units, if it's approved, and correct me if I'm wrong, staff, but they will be able to apply to Phase 3 sewer. And we've had other residents who have applied after the sewers are put in, and they've been granted leave to do it in. And the impact of that is that lowers the cost, the annual cost that you have to pay through financing for the sewers that are in. So that will be a benefit to all of those who are currently on Phase 3 sewer.
Okay, Councillor Gusselbrecht, you've been speaking for quite some time now.
All right, I'll save my
Sure.
further comments for later. Thank you.
Through to the rest of the council, so it'd just be Councillor Proctor and I. I've got some comments to make myself, so unless Councillor Proctor wants to go first, I'll speak next. Okay, I'll speak next. So I have a couple questions to start things off with respect to the proposed parking, and this is probably best to go through Director Limshu. Is there a reason why it's just 8 parking stalls? And also just the location of the parking itself, why it's not further up the road, or we would get the applicants to have a, provide a longer road with potentially more parking. So that'd be a question through Director Limshu.
The proposal for 8 stalls was put forward by the applicant. Obviously the application was reviewed both internally and externally by our various departments, including Public Works. And from staff's perspective, it felt like that was a fair number of stalls to be provided in that particular location.
All right, thank you for that. The next question is with respect to the Covenant 219 to be registered, when will council actually get to see that? And that would be for both the improvements on the frontage of the lot, including improvements parallel to Harwood, and then also for the parking lot construction. So through to staff.
Yeah, I could be corrected on this, but it's my understanding that typically on a Section 219 covenant, what's discussed at the rezoning stage are the general requirements and conditions to be included in the covenant. And then, assuming that it meets the requirements that's been discussed and agreed to by both parties, it gets registered on title. It's not the covenant itself is not a bylaw. But certainly if it's council's wish, we can certainly look at having a draft made available to council prior to adoption of the bylaw.
Yeah, and just as a follow-up to that, that seems to be the practice to date on several other rezonings that we've done.
Right.
For me, the concern is even in the last number of days, we've had some significant changes made that maybe the public isn't aware of. And the end result, I would like to have firmed up, similar to the Lot A on Dickinson, and then the one further up, I don't know the address, but anyways, Jack DeJong's property, the rezoning there, we have a covenant registered or part of the whole package. So, for myself, I would like to see that because in terms of the costing, I'm not interested in just a dollar value attached to it. I just would like to see that the proposed works will be completed by the applicants, subject to the subdivision basically getting constructed. So one of the concerns I had was this was going to be dealt at subdivision stage. And I believe I can't cite exactly where it is in the staff report, but I believe I read it somewhere. That's concerning to me because at that point it's out of council's hands. So who knows what's going to actually go in there. It just says in the staff report it's being proposed, but that doesn't mean anything unless it's actually put into a formalized agreement. So again, that's concerning. So I don't know if there's any comments, follow-ups on that, Director Limshu?
Your worship, through the council, certainly we appreciate the comments that we're hearing from yourself and council, and certainly we can work with the applicant to prepare a draft to be reviewed by council prior to adoption.
In terms of passing third reading tonight, the next concern I have, and I'll speak to some positive things about this development soon enough, but one of the concerns I have is this afternoon is when we received, I believe by email at about 1:45, an 87-page email that had a lot of public input into it and so forth. I personally didn't open that email until probably around 5:15-ish. I haven't had time to read it. So for myself, I don't feel I can actually vote on this item until I've actually gone through and had a thorough read through that. One of the concerns in the attached materials that I happened to notice, and it was spoken to this evening, was there was a petition done. Actually, there's kind of 2 petitions done on this, but Again, I don't even know what the subject matter of which was presented by one of the applicants to the neighboring neighborhood was. Did they actually take the full proposal around and show people exactly what it was? I have no idea what the content that was presented to residents was, and I know that's been a concern in previous petitions, and it's not to diminish the value of a petition, and I think petitions are very valuable in garnering community feedback when dealing with applications. So I just don't, again, I haven't really had any time to digest or even read or seriously consider the input, as well as balance that off with what's actually being heard in this evening's public hearing. So again, I don't even feel like I'm in a position where I can vote on this, and also not knowing the content of 219 covenant to actually deal with the works that are being proposed with respect to the parking, as well as the improvements that are parallel to Harwood. So actually, I don't know how long I've been speaking for, but those are just some of my preliminary concerns. One thing we've heard about is, diversity of housing and so forth. Again, I find it interesting how short memories can be when it comes to the approval of rezonings and OCP amendments. We had a 250 unit subdivision just down the road, or not subdivision, sorry, 250 unit OCP amendment and bylaw amendment for Clark Med, and which provides a ton of diversity for housing. And again, lots of small lots and so forth, nothing over a quarter of an acre, in fact, well below. So I don't think there's actually a rush to just keep diving or pressing forward on dealing with some of these rezonings. I think it requires a little bit more of a pause just to make sure we have some things in place before voting. With respect to the actual design, my first glance at it is, in my personal opinion, I actually somewhat like it. I think I don't think it's really going to negatively impact the surrounding neighborhoods all that much. I think it could be a definite improvement. The one thing I don't like about the R7 zoning is how it's being just put forward as seniors only housing, and to me that's just concerning. There's a lot of people I know that had grew up in homes that were 1,600 square feet or less. So I see that as being housing for anybody who wants to buy it, not just for seniors. There's going to be plenty of seniors housing one day down in the village core. I don't see why we're trying to stick it there, and it doesn't make a ton of sense because of how far it is away from services that seniors would probably want to have at their fingertips. Within the actual staff report, it speaks to the goals of, where is it here? Oh, sorry, jumping around here. Oh, sorry, there are strategic plan objectives. And there is again, this kind of concerns me, that how we make this jump, but it says in there, the proposed OCP amendment bylaw and zoning amendment bylaw includes senior only patio homes. Again, I don't see this as seniors only. I see this as affordable housing for people who can afford it. This supports priority 6.1 of the District of Lantzville's Council Strategic Priorities 2021 to 2023. When you actually read what's below, and it states 6.1, facilitate provision of subsidized seniors housing. So again, I don't understand how we even can make the connection here. Also to council to facilitate land acquisition and provide appropriate zoning to encourage outside agencies to provide seniors housing. Why I'm not aware of any of the applicants being in a housing agency, and we're not acquiring any land with this potential rezoning that would put the district in a position to develop a partnership to actually put forward affordable housing. I find that whole reference misplaced, in my opinion. So I'll leave my remarks there. But again, I do think that the overall concept is good. I'll speak to the other parts of my concerns momentarily. So to the rest of the council, any additional speakers or first-time speakers, and then we'll move to second-time speakers. So, okay, Councillor Gusbrecht, go ahead.
Yes, I'm sorry. It's the duty of every member of this council when they come to a meeting to read the materials. I went through the materials. They weren't lengthy. It took me 40 minutes to read the petitions, to read the letters. It's not like some other applications we had. It's our duty to come informed to a meeting. There's things I like about this development. I mentioned being able to add more 37 new residences to the Phase 3 sewer. I like the fact that we've got both a building strata as well as a bare land strata. We heard the proponent, the applicant tonight, say that no new infrastructure costs to the district. It's the developer, the applicants who have to put in all their own sewer and water lines and everything else. There's a trail hooking up Harwood over to the trail at the end of Ald's Road going up into the Woodlot and Foothills. All of us, I'm sure, have been at the end of Ald's Road on a busy day with hikers and mountain bikers. And yes, there's cars parked all over. I think the person at the end of Ald's Road was concerned with parking in front of his driveway. So these parking spaces will alleviate a portion of that. The entranceway up to the Woodlot and the Copley Trail is going to be improved. That's another bonus to the community. There's some community contributions that they've talked about. When weighing this against, is this too much density or not, I'm in favor of the housing. And it's my duty as a counselor not to shirk that duty to say, well, we'll wait till some other council wants to deal with it. This is an application. Every resident has a right to bring an application for subdivision to this council, and this council has the obligation to look at that application and make a decision. We will be making a decision tonight. I'll just say that I'm in favor of this. I don't think I need to say any more.
Okay, additional speakers. So Councillor Proctor, go ahead.
I don't have a lot to add to what's being said, so I'll just make my points brief. I think that this proposal has a lot to offer Lantzville. 34 homes that hook into an existing grid. I remember at length discussions when we were passing the zoning bylaw and the OCP, and perhaps my memory is serving me incorrectly, but I don't think so. We zoned this the way we did because there was no sewer or water, and you couldn't build, according to Ivan's Health, on less than 2.5 acres without sewer and water. So the zoning at the time was in accordance to the infrastructure. There's now infrastructure in place that these people can hook into. I've done a little math. I think some of you probably saw me using my calculator. 34 units on 11.5 acres is less than 3 units an acre. This is not a mega development. That's less dense than the Peterson Road neighborhood that I live in. We have 4 houses per acre in my neighborhood. So it's not a mega dense area. It's not going to impose on the district's infrastructure. And I like the fact that there'll be a pathway through it to the woodlot. I've talked to more than one person actually in the last month that doesn't know how to get to the woodlot from Ald's Road. So it would be nice if we advertise that as a district. That's one of our large recreational areas that we've worked hard with the woodlot owner to develop, and it would be nice to see people use it. I know my family and I have enjoyed hiking up there for the 32 years we've lived in Lantzville. And I think probably there's many other people that would enjoy it too. We've also mountain biked on it. My husband's an avid mountain biker. We did get a few pages of information after the deadline at noon, but as is standard practice, when we have a public hearing, or actually any meeting, any information that we receive before noon is sent to us afterwards. So I was prepared to put some time aside this afternoon and read that. I have questions about both petitions because neither one outlines what was told people before they signed. That is an issue in my mind with petitions. If we knew what people were told before they signed it, it would certainly give us more insight into what they were thinking or not thinking. If there's more information we need to get to people, if there isn't, if they understand the issues, if they don't understand the issues, if they're making informed choices, because that's certainly what democracy depends on, which is why we're all here. We're participating in a democratic system. I fully support this, and I'm prepared to vote on this proposal this evening. I think that is our due diligence. Thank you.
Any additional, so second time speakers? Okay. All right, I'll speak again to this. So again, in terms of sewer, that was brought up, and it's been always my understanding that the sewer system in Lantzville is, we got a lot of capacity. And I remember even a couple of years ago having a conversation with Director Spears on this, and we have so much capacity that they have to sometimes flush out some of the areas to move the sewage along. So I don't know if they still have to do that, but and at that point, I believe it was around 10 to 15%. That was the capacity of the sewer system we were using when I had that conversation. But so I don't believe sewer is a real issue here. In terms of water, a lot of things have happened since we have created solved Lantzville's water problem with basically the Lantzville Nanaimo Water Agreement and the creation of the interconnection and so forth. But again, to date, there's been, I think, one house with a water issue that's had their problems resolved. The rest is just benefiting development, and I know that was one of the biggest concerns. I know when I voted in favor of that, it was to basically to solve Lantzville's water problems for people that did have a quality or quantity issue, not to basically allow for a lot of development and so forth. With respect to the erosion of these rural buffers, that does concern me. That area, I will admit, is a bit trickier because it's not like some of the rural corridors that we have in Lantzville, along Lantzville Road, with the ALR lands there, as well as up on Superior Road and even on Harvey Road, where there's these much longer rural kind of corridors. That's what I refer to them as. But up there, again, you know, the thought was always to try and provide a buffer between the residential neighborhood and the state residential, so, or the larger lots in behind. And in my opinion, I think with this does kind of erode that. There's no arguing that. It will erode it. And hopefully this does not set a precedent moving forward that everybody can just start running forward to rezone and say, well, they did it, so we get to do it next. I think this area is unique. We know there's two other applications that are coming before council that we have to deal with them as well. So, so it is more of a neighborhood rezoning, and that's going on here. Again, you know, there was comments about me coming unprepared for this evening's meeting. You know, shame on me, I suppose, but I do recall there has been other meetings where councillors have indicated that they didn't have a chance to get through all the materials and so forth. But again, you know, at 1:45, I received this 87-page email that I didn't have a chance to look at until after 5 o'clock. In addition to that, we did have other correspondence forwarded on to council at 4:31, and that was, where is it here? I think it was an email that was sent on that was dealing with one of the neighboring properties there about being in support of having this go through. So anyways, for me, it is challenging sometimes to get through agenda, or like, you know, it's one thing to prepare and read the agendas, but when we get information coming to us on the day of, it's not always easy to get to. So, And I think moving forward and voting on this evening, this isn't a delay tactic, but I do think it is in our due diligence to actually see what is going to be written in this Covenant 219. Again, based on even the recent changes that have been bouncing around on how the parking is going to be and so forth, I would like to know with greater certainty what the end result is going to be, and also for the applicant, or the applicant, sorry, to hear that, perhaps maybe the road should be longer. Maybe there should be more stalls. Right now, staff has weighed in on it and said, okay, it seems to be fair, but as a member of this council, I don't know if it's fair. I don't know if it's in the magnitude required to balance off what's happening here, because we will be losing a lot of parking along Ald's Road for that entrance into the woodlot. So, it always comes down to this perception of, right now with Lantzville, are we for sale? And I do hear a lot of talk at this council table about, well, here's all the DCCs that we're going to get. This is the money we're going to get in lieu of parkland and so forth. And sure, there's lots of money that could be potentially coming to us. But I know when I moved here, and I know when talking with a lot of residents, we come here for the community character. We come for the vibe and the feel of the lands here. And, and the more, I think about it and reflect upon it, the more I realize that, I'm not for sale. Like, Lantzville's not for sale. These don't reflect my values. I think we need to look at community character and how these proposals fit into it. Now, in saying that, I do think this proposal looks reasonably good. Like, it's not a terrible thing, but I do understand the sentiment of residents that are opposing this, that we are getting into already amending an OCP that's, the ink is barely dry on. We just adopted in 2019, and here we are 3 years later, already making a drastic change. I anticipate that an OCP amendment process or revision, would be probably coming into play within the next couple of years. I think it needs to, because there are significant concerns. I think perhaps down the road, residents, even during an OCP revision, if we were to look at that, they would probably look at something like this and go, you know what, it's probably not that bad. But I do agree with a lot of residents that are opposing this, that it's the process in which we're going about it. I think is rubbing a lot of people the wrong way. So those are my remarks for now. I'll leave it at that. We'll go through to the rest of the body. If there's any third-time speakers. Again, for myself, I won't be supporting the application this evening. I would like to support it, but I don't feel that I have all the necessary information, nor have I done my due diligence and looking at the fullness of the information that we've received. So unless there's anything further, I will move to calling the question on third reading. Okay, all those in favor and opposed, noting that Mayor Swain's opposed, third reading carries. We'll need to call back Councillor Savage. Sorry, we jumped the gun on that. So we'll just, my apologies. So thank you, Councillor Gusselbrecht. So you're willing to make the motion? Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. Bylaw 314, that the District of Lantzville zoning bylaw number 180, 2020 amendment 6671 and 6685/6685B Harwood Drive, bylaw number 314, 2022, be given third reading.
And do we have a second? A second by Councillor Wilson. Discussion on the zoning or rezoning. So through to Councillor Gusselbrecht, if you wish.
Thank you. I think most of what I had to say, I've said regarding the OCP amendment. This is a zoning bylaw. The applicant is, who's here tonight, Mr. Mack, indicated it's a conceptual design at this point. When we go to the actual subdivision and details, water management, all of those details will be dealt with at that time. So this is part and parcel with the OCP amendment, and I'll be voting in favor.
Okay, and through to the seconder. Okay, seconders, nothing, and through to the rest of the council, so Councillor Proctor and I. Okay, I'll speak to it next then. So through to staff, again, in terms of the Covenant 219, when can council expect to see that? So through to Director Limshu.
Your worship, through the council, we'll do our best to bring it forward to the next council meeting, I believe, which is in September.
Okay, thank you. And basically my review of the proposed zoning, there's nothing in there that stipulates age. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Yeah, especially with the proposed R7 zone. Yeah.
That is correct.
Okay.
There's nothing in the zoning that regulates age.
Again, I do think having homes upwards of 1,600 square feet would lend themselves quite nicely to young families as well. So I don't think it should just be targeted to seniors. But again, the zoning is absent of any ages. So I hope, you know, down the road, should this all go through and it's eventually sold off, that, you know, people are willing to will be able to buy no matter what their age. Other than that, I'm not going to speak anymore on this. I think I know the sense of or where council's at. So unless there's anything further, I'm going to move to calling the question. All right. So all those in favor and opposed, knowing Mayor Swain's opposed, it carries. All right. So now we can call back Councillor Savage. Okay, so at this point, we're going to bounce back in our agenda. So we have the consent agenda. So I'll just make the motion that the recommendations listed for items 7A to 7C in the consent agenda be approved. Yeah. And seconded, sorry, yeah, so second by, I'll say Councillor Savage at this point. We'll call the question then. All those in favor? And then, hold on, there's a typo there. It should read 5A to 5C. So I'll remake the motion there. The recommendations listed for items 5A through to 5C in the consent agenda be approved. So seconded by Councillor Savage. And all those in favor and opposed, that's carried unanimously. All right. So that takes us on to public input period. So again, persons recognized by the chair to speak must first state their name and address for the record, may speak once for up to 2 minutes unless council resolves otherwise, and are limited to providing comment regarding items listed on the consent agenda for this meeting. Excluding public hearing topics, comments must be directed to the chair and must not be directed to individual members of council, staff, or the audience, and must not include personnel issues. Is there anybody present that wishes to give public input? And also, do we have anybody remotely registered? Okay. All right, so seeing or hearing none, we'll move on to item 7C of our agenda. So this
Point of privilege.
284.
Point of privilege.
Yeah, I've heard your point of order. I will acknowledge that when I'm finished speaking. So through to Councillor Proctor, what's your point of privilege?
Thank you. Since I last participated in a vote or discussion on the Village South development, which is bylaw number 283 and 284, I've received a legal opinion. And as a result, I am declaring that I am not entitled to participate in the discussion or the vote on agenda item C, 7C, because of the close proximity of my property to the development. I will be leaving the meeting.
Okay, and so through to staff, she's completely dropped off the call or the Zoom. Okay. All right, so so the first item we have listed is a Village South information request. This motion is already on the floor, and this is from the May 31st, 2022 regular council meeting. And I'll just reread the motion for the benefit of the viewership and those in the gallery, that the applicant of the Village South Development be requested to provide the clear and strong rationale to justify the proposed number of new housing units exceeding the anticipated number of new housing units range as stated in the 2019 official community plan. So that's already been moved and seconded. I will speak to this first and then through the rest of the council. I'll keep it brief. So the one thing we don't have on our agenda this evening, we did receive an email today at some point from the, I think it was today, from Mr. Darwin Mellum, then basically speaking to this, so we don't have it in our agenda. So through the staff, is there a reason why?
We do not provide correspondence that's the subject, about the subject of a public hearing. So these are items that council is dealing with.
Yeah.
It wasn't open for comment by the public because it will be at a public hearing on Monday. So he was advised that his letter would be added to the public hearing package.
Okay, it's still in my view, however, that the applicant or the agent acting on behalf of the applicant was commenting on this particular agenda item. That's, I don't know what the view of staff is on that. I understand it still needs to be included as part of the public input for the public hearing, but in terms of, with respect to that, I'm kind of at a loss, I suppose. So through to staff.
I don't know if Director Limshu has anything to add,
Director Limshu,
but it is pertinent. Our practice has been that any item where the public hearing is coming up, the information goes to the public hearing.
Sure. Okay, fair enough. And Director Limshu, is there anything to add, or I'll continue speaking to it?
I have nothing to add at this point in time.
Yeah. So, and again, for the record, we did receive an email this today at some point, and it spoke directly to this. My recommendation to council is to simply vote this motion down. In the email that was provided, I believe the agent acting on behalf of the applicant has answered the question, and that will be found within that correspondence. So I don't think there's anything further required of this council to try and request further explanation or information from the agent acting for the applicant or the applicant themselves. So again, my recommendation to this council is vote this down. I will be voting against this motion.
And the other option would be for council as a body to agree to withdraw the motion.
Yeah, my recommendation to this council is simply to vote it down rather than withdraw it. So any additional speakers to this item? So Councillor Savage, go.
Yeah, I've got a few comments here. There's really only one main reason which could be used as a clear and strong rationale for so vastly exceeding the anticipated number of units in the OCP, and that is amenities. And even if the amenities were astounding, the community still has the right to say they are not worth all the density. However, the 4 amenities we're receiving are not astounding. They're briefly 1, 2 gateway signs, 2, a widened sidewalk on both sides of Ware Road, 3, 3,000 per unit, which has become standard for all rezonings, and 4, 20.84% of parkland, which is less than the OCP's target of 22%. And of course, only 15.84% of this as parkland can be counted as an amenity. And with the parkland, it's $1.5 million to improve this parkland if we want something like a sports field. So that's it. The other important factor is we have to compare these amenities to what we would get if we followed the OCP numbers. And around 389 units plus 100 senior supportive housing, the parkland would actually be more at 22% per the OCP. And in today's letter from the developer rep, it states the rezoning.
Point of order.
And your point of order, Councillor Gusmar?
I thought I just heard staff said that that letter is to be kept for the public hearing, which is coming up, and should not be part of this meeting.
Okay, thank you for that, Councillor Gusbrecht. Through to staff, I guess really the question is, should it not be a part of this meeting? If we have the agent acting on behalf of the applicant sending in an email which directly speaks to a motion on this evening's agenda, what should council do? And I don't know if we require a legal opinion to further discuss this or what.
Well,
but,
I think council is constantly faced with this. I think council, because your email addresses are published, at times will receive correspondence after a public hearing is closed. And we've asked that you simply forward it to staff, and staff will respond. And the same thing in the process for going up to a public hearing. The council procedure bylaw says that anything that is the topic of a public hearing will go to the public hearing. So it seems inequitable if we allow one letter and didn't open it up to all of the public, because the practice has been, well, certainly the bylaw states that if it's about a bylaw that is going to public hearing, the correspondence goes to the public hearing. And he was advised of that, and he acknowledged it.
So I didn't quite hear the last thing you said. So he was advised.
He was advised, he received a correspondence acknowledgement telling him that his correspondence would be added to the public hearing as part of the public hearing information for the public hearing on Monday.
Okay, so again, I may have to basically defer my decision to a next meeting on this so I can further investigate it, because I'm not quite convinced either way to make an actual ruling on this point of order. So I believe in our procedure bylaw, I have the ability to move my decision to a future meeting.
If you're being asked to comment on a point of order, it's always the chair's ability to make that decision when you wish. If you like, I can pull up the council procedure bylaw right now and reference the section within the bylaw that states that correspondence that's the subject of a public hearing is not included with an agenda.
And yeah, I don't want to get into a big debate here this evening on that. Perhaps, again, I will defer this to the next meeting or my decision on the point of order, and I'll consult with staff and on this further before I make a ruling, because I think in terms of the, how things have transpired with respect to the input we've received, it's directly speaking to this on our agenda.
Just for clarity, that would mean that it would go on the regular agenda for September 7th.
So be it. Okay. So at this point, through to Director Coates, just in terms of proper procedure, would that mean that we'd be referring this motion then, or can we still vote on it?
I'm sorry I'd lapsed out there. I thought that you were about to ask council to vote on it.
Well, I
By
would
your
like
recent
counsel,
comment,
yeah.
you mentioned that there was a point of order. Did someone call for a point of order?
Yeah, Councillor Gusbrecht called for a point of order, and my ruling, I would like to basically refer to the next meeting, so I have time to
Okay.
kind of give it proper
I just want
thought
to
and
make sure
analysis.
the record documents what the point of order is.
Yeah, but in terms of actually voting on this, I would like to actually dispose of this evening.
Well, if you've got a point of order in front of you,
That stops it.
I would say that so.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
I mean, it's council's meeting, it's council's motion. If you wish to proceed to vote on it without ruling on the point of order and ruling on the point of order at a future meeting, that's up to council.
Yeah, again, I would like to refer my decision on the point of order to the next meeting, unless the member of council wants to withdraw the point of order, and then we can vote on this. Again, I think this needs to be followed up on regardless, that, you know, how to handle these emails that we receive from applicants for the various zoning and OCP amendments, applications that we get.
So it would only be for applicants, not for the public?
Well, I think it's, yeah, that's a good point in itself, but.
Because we have written, you know, we've responded to public saying that their correspondence would go on the public hearing.
Okay. All right. I think in terms of just moving this forward, and I'll follow through with council on this anyways, in terms, I will rule on this evening. So in terms of speaking to it at this point through to Councillor Savage, we will not be making reference to specific details within that correspondence.
No problem at all, thank you. It would be my privilege not to refer to the letter. So that's all I had to say. Those were the basic things. And just to repeat that one point, we really have nothing to compare to because we're not getting the amenities of what they would be with the OCP numbers, but I'm suggesting they would be very similar. So thank you.
Additional speakers on this before I call the question? Go ahead, Councillor Gusselbrecht.
Yes, I believe I heard Councillor Savage talk about these numbers vastly exceeding the OCP. The OCP, the guideline, not a density number, but a guideline referred to 389 units in this area, plus a target of 100 senior supportive housing, a target. That could have been 89, that could have been 120. So really what you have, if you look at the OCP guideline of 500 units, including senior supportive housing, the rationale is really dealing with 126 extra units. With average 2 persons per unit, which seems to be the provincial average, we're talking about 252 extra people. To me, that's not vastly exceeding. That's minimal. Thank you.
All right, so, okay, Councillor Savage.
Yes, I just want to clarify what the numbers actually are. 389 units for all of Village South. Village South represents 90%. Thereabouts of this land area, so that gives them 351 units. The 100 units of seniors care, the genesis of it, it was originally a density bonus. You got an extra 100 units if they were seniors care. And it evolved into, I forget what the wording is, but it's definitely there. So it's 351 plus 100, and the reason it's more than this 389 is simply, or the reason it's more than the 351 is because there's a 0.85 acre piece that's part of the village core. So one, in my mind, I would credit them about 20 units thereabouts. If on that 0.8 acre, it's hard to estimate, but it has to be 3 stories adjacent to Lantzville Road. So it's not exact, but I would put it at around 371 units. So then with the 100 seniors, if you're going to say 471, that's still in my mind a big increase, and you can't deduct the 50 units of seniors from the 632. It's all one package. It's 632, which makes it 582 with 50 units of seniors. So it's a good deal more than what the OCP numbers were, just to clarify the exact numbers. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Gesselbrecht, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't agree that those are the exact numbers. A target can be less or more, so I'll move the target to 130. So we still have 126 units, 132 units over and above the 500. So my math was incorrect the first time, but the second time I will get this right. That is an increase of approximately 264 more people. The increase of 132 units is a 25% increase, not vastly exceeding the guidelines. It's minimal. I mean, we've seen numbers in Nanaimo, in Parksville, now in Ladysmith, that I would maybe categorize as vastly, but there's a housing crisis. What we have here is not vastly. And the rationale, as stated by the engineer for the proponent in an earlier letter to council, is embodied in the application itself. It sets out all the units. Staff then weighed in on it, two staff planners, our current planner as well as our previous one, they've recommended. That's the rationale. So I don't see why we need this motion. This has been going on for 10 months now. If we don't, and it's a decision of council, whether it's a clear and strong rationale. It's nobody else's decision, it's council's decision. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Savage, as long as we're not
One
going
last
to get into
brief
back and
comment,
forth.
please. If you target having one wife, Council Gesselbrecht, you can't have 2 wives. If you're 6 feet tall and you're standing beside someone that's 7.5 feet tall, they're vastly taller than you are, and that's a 25% increase. I rest my case. Thank you.
Okay. Anyways, I suggest to council we move on and then vote this down. I most certainly will be doing that, even though it's my own motion. So through the rest of council, is there any further debate? Okay, hearing seen none, I will call a question. All those in favor and opposed, no, Mayor Swain's opposed, Councillor Wilson, Councillor Gesselbrecht opposed, fails. No, I believe in favor. Were you in favor, Councillor Savage?
Yes, very much so.
All right, so the next motion is Councillor Savage's recommendation, and go ahead, Councillor Savage.
Thank you. That District of Lantzville zoning bylaw number 180, 2020, amendment Village South Special Plan Area Zone, bylaw number 284, 2021, second reading given July 6, 2022, be rescinded. And further, that District of Lantzville zoning bylaw number 180, 2020, amendment Village South Special Area Plan Zone bylaw number 284, 2021, Schedule 1, be amended in Section 6 by striking 3 meters for the front setback of a row house townhouse and inserting 6 meters, be amended in subsection 7 by striking 3 meters for the front setback of an apartment and inserting 10 meters, and by striking 3 meters in the front setback of a row house, townhouse, and inserting 6 meters, be amended in subsection 8 by inserting mixed use after apartment and striking 3 meters for the front setback of apartment mixed use and inserting 10 meters. And further, that District of Lantzville zoning bylaw number 180, 2020 amendment, Village South Special Area Plan Zone bylaw number 284, 2021 be given second reading as amended.
Okay, and do we have a seconder to this? Okay, seeing none, I will second the motion. So go ahead, Councillor Savage.
Yes, thank you. This motion is simply to change the front setbacks from 3 meters, which is 9.8 feet, to 10 meters, 33 feet, for apartments and mixed-use buildings that can be up to 4 stories high, and to change the front setbacks from 3 meters to 6 meters for townhouses, row houses that can be up to 3 stories. Some will say you're getting into the weeds, leave it up to the experts. To that, I say nonsense. There is nothing complicated about setbacks. Do you want a four-story building a mere 3 meters from the sidewalk looming over you? This can block the sun and create wind tunnels and so on. Also, communities all over BC vary in their setback requirements. There's nothing expert about it. It's just a matter of taste. And Qualicum has a whole variety of differing setbacks in their downtown, which allows for gathering places and more charm. So, and it's cities with limited space, which brings downtown buildings right up to the sidewalk. Lantzville's Village Improvement Plan prescribes undulating setbacks up to 8 meters back in order to create gathering places, outdoor dining, and more interest. And these are for 2- and 3-story buildings. With 4-story buildings, 10 meters is reasonable to give pedestrians some breathing room. We're a village, not a city. So the question is easy. Do you want 4-story buildings further back than 3 meters from public sidewalks? Do you want 3-story row houses, townhouses, further back than 3 meters from public sidewalks? There's absolutely nothing on expert or getting into the weeds with these two questions. So that's basically it. It's simple as anything. Do you want these tall buildings crowding right up to the public sidewalks, walkways, or do you want them moved back to provide some green space and breathing room? It's just think of the look between those two options, and it's obviously one would be more in keeping with a village, the other would be more in keeping with a city, and I have no idea how this 3 meters ever came about. It's an unbelievable tiny setback for the front of a 4-story building. Thank you.
Through the rest of the council, or actually as a seconder, I'll just speak to it. So through to Director Limshu, I don't think this question's been answered up to this point, but is there a reason why the Village South proposed zoning for Area B, specifically apartments, seems relaxed? And what I mean by that is, like, when I do the comparison to what we see in Nanaimo and Parksville, even for the front lot line setback, it's half, like 3 meters, as Councillor Savage has indicated, and both Parksville and Nanaimo, it's 6 meters. So, and that's just one example, and another one would be, when we look at the proposed zoning for Village South, like even for building height, even though it's not part of the motion, for Village South, it's up to 16 meters. In Nanaimo, for their R8 medium residential medium density residential, it's 14 meters, so less. And then when you go to Parksville for their RS3 or high density residential, they have it as 11 meters. But if you go through and compare these, these different zoning bylaws from different cities against Village South for District of Lantzville, it seems like it's quite relaxed. I don't know if you can speak to maybe the origin of the numbers that are actually presented in the zoning or the rezoning application. Like, where did the 3 meters come from for even the front lot setback or lot line setback?
Your worship, through the council, unfortunately, I can't speak to the origin of the numbers. I've stated previously, these bylaws had received first and second reading prior to me starting with the district. And, in reviewing the files, it seemed like there was a number of discussions between the applicant, their consultants, and the planning department with respect to creating a vision for Village South, which is articulated in the in the amendment bylaws. So that's the OCP bylaw that talks about references, design guidelines, and so forth. If you're asking me specifically how the 3 meters came about versus 6, I'm not able to answer that at this point in time.
Okay, thank you. And that is the question. Where did the 3 meters come from, as well as the proposal of 16 meters for building height? Even another one, when you compare the 3 areas, like Village South application to Nanaimo and Parksville, lot coverage for Village South is proposed at 55% for apartments, whereas when you go to Nanaimo for the R8, it's 45%. And then when you look at Parksville for the RS3, it's 45%. And this is my research, right? So I'm not a planning expert, but I can read, I can look at different cities and what they have and do a comparison. And I'm at a bit of a loss, as to why what's being proposed is so relaxed. And I think the primary effect of all this is it allows the developer to use more of the site area for building, and there'll be less left over for actual green space. And the only way to remedy this is, and I believe this is all related, is there must be the provision of underground parking if you have any hope of making this work. But again, the whole thing for Area B is puzzling because it's so relaxed compared to what we see in Nanaimo and Parksville. And again, Parksville, there are 3. They classify as high density residential. Nanaimo R8 is the medium density residential. And the funny thing with Nanaimo is if you go to R9, that's for high rises. So they go from basically R8 as, R8 as high or medium density, which they define as for medium density multifamily developments on specific lots that are compatible with other residential and neighboring commercial land uses. And then high density residential high rise, it says for high density residential development for specific lots that support a high rise building form. So I find it interesting because the lingo that sometimes gets bounced around, especially when referring to this application or even to certain parts of it, it's low to medium or very low to medium at best. And meanwhile, the nomenclature in other municipalities is contrary to that. So anyways, it's just my observations, my research, but things are not adding up. And sometimes when you take your eye off something else and you can focus somewhere else within the application, because there has been a lot of distractions within this application. And now taking a closer look at the lot lines, setbacks, and so forth, it's kind of alarming. But I'll leave my comments at that for now. We're probably gonna have lots of debate about this moving forward. So through to rest of council is first-time speakers. So Councillor Gaspard, go ahead.
I always thought we were more relaxed here in Lantzville. Do we want to be like Nanaimo? Do we want to be like Parksville? There's obviously good things in both of those communities, but this is our OCP, our zoning. This is an application that we're looking at for Lantzville. Now, I have trouble visualizing when it just numbers, 3 meters, 6 meters. But through a question through Chair to staff, was one of the reasons for the 3-meter setback along the roads, that is Lantzville Road and Ware Road, specifically Lantzville Road, in order to provide parking behind these commercial residential structures.
Your worship, through the council, yeah, I mean, typically it's common practice to push the buildings closer to the street to create that interface and animation between, what's taking place within the sidewalk and the buildings. So and the other part of it is just the point you raised, where you push the building closer to the street and you hide the parking in the back of the building. And so there's examples of that in pretty much every community that you look at. And to your point, yeah, while it's good to compare and review other jurisdictions and what they're doing with their bylaw, I think that the fundamental question is, this plan, as I understand it, was made for Lantzville plan, and so the bylaws that are put forward are supposed to be a representation of that, the vision for the village core. It doesn't necessarily have to be identical to Parksville or Qualicum Beach or Nanaimo. And I guess the question is what's being considered in both bylaws, does that achieve the vision that the community envisions for the site?
Yeah, go ahead, Councillor Gaspard.
So help me with visualizing what a 3-meter setback would look like on Lantzville Road. Where is the 3 meters, where is it measured from in terms of the building to where the sidewalk would be or where the street would be?
That's a good question. I mean, probably the closest likeness would be Municipal Hall. So 3 meters is basically 10 feet. And that 10 feet is measured from the property line back to the building. Like I say, when you're in a downtown, I'll call it downtown setting, and we'll use the village core as an example, you want to have your buildings close to the road as opposed to having them set back from the road. And the idea again is to create that feeling of animation and interaction between the pedestrian and the built form. Other than that, there are really most of the buildings in Lantzville are set back, greater than 3 meters from the property line. Perhaps another example might be the pub, as sort of another example where, but I'm thinking that it might be further than 3 meters away, without knowing exactly where the property line is in front of the pub. But if you look at Sleg's Lumber Building, for example, that's set back from the property line. And obviously the gas station, the old gas station, and that building's set back further than 3 meters from the property line. So, if you can visualize those, each of those buildings give you a different feel in relation to the street. So, so we have, I guess, in terms of general comparison, and this is sort of a broad comment, 3 meters, think Municipal Hall, think the pub, 6 meters, maybe look at, think more the Select Lumber Building.
Sorry, I'm just going to do a point of clarification here. Just with respect to Lantzville Road and the pub, it is my clear understanding that the road right-of-way is pretty much a foot off the building envelope. So I don't know if the Director of Public Planning is aware of that or not. And it may be new information since you were last here. So, yeah, the road right away is, most people in Lantzville didn't officially know where it was until we actually went through the whole downtown core revitalization exercise. So I don't know if that would be examples we'd want to use or we'd want to hear the public to know of. So unless I'm wrong, maybe through
Yeah,
the staff,
so without-
the property line is right at the doorstep, essentially, of the pub.
Yeah. Yeah, so, I think the question, I'm just trying to give sort of as best an example as I can locally. So I'm just
That's fine.
looking through the eyes. Yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, you're correct, Mr. Mayor, that, yeah, the pub, I guess the bottom of the stairs is very close to the property line, if not on the property line.
Okay,
So if
Councillor Gusselbrack, is there any follow-ups for Director Limshu?
Yes. All right, so to get an idea, I don't know if you're acquainted with Ladysmith. I've always liked Ladysmith. I like walking down the main street, bakery, store, small shops. Some of them have residential above. How far back would those shop fronts be from, what would be the setbacks in Ladysmith walking down Main Street?
I would suggest that the setbacks for Main Street, Ladysmith, for the most part, those existing buildings are right on the property line, if not very close to the property line. And because as you see if you're familiar with Ladysmith, the sidewalk goes right up to the building, the base of the buildings, pretty much all along Main Street there. I mean, there are a couple buildings that are kind of set back from the property line, and those are very noticeable. But for, we'll call Main Street Ladysmith, the majority of buildings are the property line.
So in Lantzville, if we had a 3-meter setback from the sidewalk, from the property line, that would be 3 meters back from what you'd visualize walking down the street in Ladysmith. Is that what you're saying?
Generally speaking, yes.
All right. So for Lantzville Road especially, where the design at this point, the conceptual design, is commercial at the bottom level with some residential above. You'd be wandering down the street, looking in the windows, seeing your neighbors, seeing tourists coming down. There'd be plenty of room to congregate, to wish each other well, to stop, drink a coffee. It wouldn't be crowded by any stretch of the imagination. Is that correct?
Yeah, if we're using Ladysmith as an example, yeah, it has a nice, comfortable feel to it.
Relaxed. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, additional comments from council? Okay, go ahead, Councillor Savage.
Yes, you have to think of the people living in these apartments. I know it's a consideration, people looking at them, but believe it or not, there will be people living in them. And this idea of a comfy interaction with the street, and that's what residents will enjoy, well, tell that to the people on Hornby Street in Vancouver that go to bed with ambulances, sirens, and screeching tires. They would kill to be 10 meters back from the road. So just picture someone facing Ware Road. Why would they want to be 3 meters from the public area when they could be 10? They would much prefer to be further from the road when they go to bed. People in their bedrooms, they want privacy, for Pete's sake. So the real reason this is 3 meters is to get as much stuff as you can, and especially places like Area B. you take the Longwood in Nanaimo, and you couldn't fit 300 units of that in Area B. There's not enough room. So Longwood is far more spaced out than this. You take Lindley Valley Road, those big 4-story apartments with underground parking just off Uplands, between Uplands and Stillwater there, and you couldn't have 300 units of them because they're more spacious than this. So this is the real reason it's 3 meters. It's to get as much stuff in as possible, and that's why it comes back to density. But I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about having it pleasant looking, and the Area B is not in the village. It's up on Ware Road. So we don't want to be have these people, these will be our future residents, living right adjacent to busy roads. There's nothing comfy and sweet little interaction about it. It's unpleasant living that close to the public. So this is all city talk. This is what cities do, having this close interaction with buildings. We're not in a city, we're in a village. So that's important, and just picture 10 feet is 9.8 feet would be approximately the length of this table. And we're not talking about little shops with residential above. These are 4-story buildings. If you stand this close to a 4-story apartment building with 80, 95, 100 units, it's looming. It's an enormous thing to be that close. You're looking straight up. There's consideration of sunlight, wind, and everything else. It's just more pleasant in a village not to be cramped with tall buildings like that. So that's the essence of it. And if you have it 3 meters, you've lost your choice. Everything will be so monotone, monolithic, much the same, consistently the same. Everything will be 3 meters back, just like a long tunnel of stuff. And don't forget, we've also got townhouses and row houses, and they can be combined to be townhouse row houses. And that's a wall. Again, that's just 3 meters back. These are 3 stories tall, and it's more in areas mixed with houses. So do you really want buildings 3 stories high, a simple 9.8 feet back from where the public is? That's not as pleasant for the people living there or the people walking by. It makes for a very crowded, cramped, city-like feel. So anyway, that's just using common sense with it. That's why I brought the topic up. What kind of a look do you want? And just picture 4-story apartment buildings, not quaint little shops with small, 2 stories and so on. Thank you.
Okay, go ahead, Councillor Wilson.
I'm sure if, for those living on 5 acres, when they, or more or less on properties in Lantzville, that they would visualize these setbacks and they would not like them. But we have to also remember that people that choose to live in the village choose to live there because they might like some of the closeness and some of the just the overall look. And I personally believe, having lived in over top of on the second floor of a condo in a city, and I don't think this is going to be anywhere near comparable to Vancouver or any place like that. I think it's unfair for us to draw that comparison. I bought in that particular unit because I wanted that lifestyle. I wanted the feelness of being close to my neighbors, and by any stretch, I don't look at this as though this is going to be something that's going to be super high density in any way. I think that this is something that can contribute to community and to diversity. So for that reason, I just won't be supporting this. I think that, like I said, for those that are used to living on a larger lot, I can appreciate how that they would feel and think about something like this. But I think that there's going to be a demographic of people that are going to be provided diversity of housing that they're going to want. This sort of closeness village feel in our town core. So for that reason, I won't be supporting it, and I think that we should leave this up to professional planners. And sorry to go against what you say here, Councillor Savage, but this is, I feel, getting into the weeds. So I won't be supporting this.
Okay, I'll speak to this next. All right, so some interesting debate on this one. With respect to getting into the weeds and so forth, I don't agree with that one bit. I think with any of these proposals, doesn't matter if it's this one or any one, we need to come into these with a willingness to do research and keep an open mind, not just close our minds and just say, you know what, I'm just going to listen to the experts that have provided these reports and so forth, and not accept anything else. I personally don't accept that. I look at this as looking at Nanaimo, Parksville, and other municipalities is looking at all those experts and how they've developed their zoning bylaws and so forth, and other councils. And I'm not saying Lantzville needs to be like Nanaimo, Parksville, Qualicum, or other municipalities, but man, we can definitely learn from what's in their zoning bylaws and in terms of what things look like and how things get built out. And this is concerning, and to steer the conversation to, oh, it's just what's going to be facing Lantzville Road and Ware Road, that's not acceptable. This is throughout the whole subdivision. This is every road. So to me, that's very short-sighted. I think 3 meters doesn't fit, and I'm still puzzled as to why it's 3 meters. In other municipalities, it's 6. In cities, it's 6. I've lived in many apartments. I remember living in Burnaby on Willingdon Ave, and the apartment building I lived there was a 3-story, had underground parking, and I can say with good certainty the front or the lot line setback was definitely more than 10 feet. It was probably more in the magnitude of 20 feet or even greater. Just saying, and that was on Willingdon Ave. I've lived in other apartments, even down in the west end of Vancouver, and also 16th and oh geez, not Butte. Anyways, West 16th. I've lived in that area, and that was in more of a high rise. But high rises have different, I guess, expectations, especially when you have a lot of commercial underneath and so forth. And you're on Canby. Yeah, that's where it was, Canby and West 16th. So I've lived in many of apartments and so forth, and it's troubling that the setback on this one throughout is basically 3 meters. I can't accept it, and I can't imagine the majority of residents will accept it either. It's, you know, I look outside of our community, and again, like, it's kind of, in my opinion, smart, because I'm utilizing the planners of other communities. And you look at the city of Nanaimo, a lot, I don't know how big their planning department is, but it's definitely more than 1 or 2. And ours has only expanded to 2 in the last little while. But I can't imagine we have really the resources to sometimes examine these things. For me, it took a little while to actually do a comparative analysis between Nanaimo and Parksville and put thought into it and so forth. And it's just puzzling how we've arrived at what we've arrived at, or what's being put into the Village South application. Again, 55% lot coverage. And then also, if it can be increased to 60% for all buildings and structures combined. So 60% of the parcel could be covered in building. That leaves only 40%. Where are the cars going to go? And then where's all the landscape, everything else? There's a reason why the experts in other municipalities have limited it to 45%. And I know I'm a little off topic, but again, it's in line with the 3 meters versus 6 meters. Reduce it by 50% doesn't make sense. In a funny way, though, I won't be supporting this motion because I don't want to be delaying the public hearing any further. But this stuff, I think, will eventually come full circle anyways, and we'll have to examine it. Again, getting into the weeds, I don't agree with that one bit. You know, we are here to do research. You know, this evening I was told I didn't come prepared. Well, maybe not reading stuff, but I've come very prepared in dealing with these topics, that's for sure. So I'll leave it at that at this point. Further debate before I call the question. But again, you know, for the reason of not delaying the public hearing any further, I will not be supporting this motion, even though I actually agree with a lot of the content. So further debate before I call the question, Councillor Savage.
Yes, just a couple of things. I'm quite sure if you asked 30 people, would they rather have their bedroom 10 feet from the public, including roads, noise, and everything, or 30 feet? I'm quite confident most would choose the 30 feet. So I don't believe people want to be close and crowded like that. And the second, in terms of into the weeds, is not the least. It's just choice. Do you want to be further back buildings? It's the look of the area, the look of the village. Do you want all these buildings in 57 acres to be crowded right up to the front? Or would you want some variety and have them back for green space and so on? It's just a very simple question to me. All you have to do is drive around different towns. What do you like? Do you like that city look with an absolute wall, unbroken wall going all the way down the street of tall buildings? Or do you like the undulating, more variety, like Qualicum with gathering places and very big setbacks in some cases? I've measured them in Qualicum. So it's nothing in the weeds about it. What's the look of the village you want? Do you want a city or do you want a village? To me, the answer is simple. And this is how you do it. This is how you design it. Okay.
Okay, unless there's anything further, I'm going to call the question. All right, so I'm going to call the question then. All those in favor and opposed, Mayor Swain's opposed, and Councillor Gussenbrecht's opposed, it fails. So for those who are wondering, the public hearing will proceed. All right, so that takes us on to bylaw 298. And I believe we need to call. Yeah. Do you want to take a 5-minute recess to reestablish that? Sure. Okay, we'll take a 5-minute recess. We'll be back at it at 8:45. Okay, the time is now 8:45. Councillor Proctor, I don't know if you're with us at this point. Okay, so knowing that Councillor Proctor has rejoined the meeting at 8:45, we're on to bylaw number 298. So there's a motion on the floor. This was referred from January 12th, 2022. I'm not going to read out the whole thing, but in terms of council debate on this one, what is council's will? So Councillor Savage.
Yes, I move we postpone this indefinitely.
Okay, there's been a motion to postpone it indefinitely. Is there a seconder to that? Okay, seconded by Councillor Proctor. I don't think it's debatable, is it? Through to Director Coates. I was getting mixed up on these. To postpone indefinitely is just non-debatable. Pretty sure. Yeah.
Point of clarification, the bylaw as it reads now reads 0.8 of a hectare, is that correct?
Just for clarity, there's a bylaw that's in process. The issue that this motion is speaking to is only one small portion of the bylaw. So I guess staff would need to get some clarity of whether the intent of council is to scrap all of bylaw 298 or simply the motion that's on the floor to amend it.
So through to the mover then, what is your intent?
No, it's just to move this motion. That's all it is, the motion that's on the table, just to postpone it indefinitely. That's the only intent of the postponement.
And that's just the motion for it to be rescinded. That's how I understand it. So through to staff, that's what's on the floor at the moment. And then there's a staff recommendation that follows. And then there's also Councillor Savage's recommendation, which is competing with the staff recommendation.
Yeah, so the motion that's on the floor is that the second reading be rescinded. The purpose of rescinding the second reading was for Councillor Savage's recommendations, which are 3 down there, to be considered. But from a staff perspective, the staff recommendation was to not rescind. It's the first motion.
So Councillor Gusselbart, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't support postponing this indefinitely. I think this has been on the table for a long time. I think we need to deal with it. And I'll speak later if we get to the rescinding motion.
And I think the original question to me was postponed indefinitely debatable? And yes, it is. So what I've got in my cheat sheets is that it does require a seconder. It is debatable. It's not amendable. And it's a simple majority.
Thank you for that. All right, so back to Councillor Savage. Is that your intent is just to postpone indefinitely the rescinding of?
The whole ball of wax here, just postponing it indefinitely.
Okay. So there's been a modification to the postponement motion, and that is to postpone the bylaw amendment indefinitely. So through to the seconder, I believe that's Councillor Proctor. Do you still second that?
Yeah, no, I'm not going to second that. I don't understand what I was seconding. I'm sorry.
Okay. Yeah, so I'll second this one, just to at least open it up for some discussion. So through to Councillor Savage.
Sorry, I need to get this recorded. So moved and seconded that the motion on the floor be postponed indefinitely. And the motion on the floor being that second reading of the miscellaneous bylaw number 298 be rescinded.
Yeah, which effectively would do the same thing anyways, Councillor Savage, go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's just we have a lot on our plate, so we don't need this on top of everything. So I just thought, let's just postpone it. So simple as that. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Sorry, my button went off. The staff recommendation, if it would flow following, if this passed, that would change that the and further that council withdraws the motion because you wouldn't need to do that. It would simply and further that the District of Lantzville zoning bylaw amendment miscellaneous bylaw number 298 2021 be scheduled for an electronic public hearing. So it would be from that, the minimum parcel size, and go to and further that. But that's for after you vote on this.
I'm honestly getting a little confused myself, so.
I just want to make sure council understood before they voted what the impact is. So you have a bylaw that's had first two readings. Normally, that bylaw would then get a motion and we would proceed to a public hearing. However, in this case, some time ago, there was a motion to rescind the second reading, and that was made with the intent that there'd be follow-up motions, which were labeled as Councillor Savage's recommendations. But that has been put forward to, I've lost count of how many meetings. So just so everybody's on the same page, your motion on the floor is that second reading of bylaw 298 be rescinded. Now there's a motion on the floor that that motion be postponed indefinitely. And so that motion will be gone. And then staff would call for council then to pass a motion that the bylaw number 298 be scheduled for an electronic public hearing.
So really, I believe that, you know, what is at stake here is council really interested in pursuing this at this time and moving it forward to a public hearing.
And just for clarity, it is not just about these motions, the automotive repair.
Yes.
That bylaw 298 has many, many issues in it, other issues.
Okay, so through the council, there's a motion that's being made, postponement motion, debate on the motion. So Councillor Savage, go ahead.
Yes, I don't know how a public hearing got tied in with this. This wasn't holding up anything per se. So I'm just, all I'm doing is saying I don't want to proceed with changing the this particular aspect to it, which is the automotive land size. I don't wish to pursue it at this time. And that's it. There's nothing about a public hearing that I was asking or not asking for. So how is the public hearing tied in with this? Why is that tied in with this?
Well, the act of making a motion some months ago to amend the bylaw, to rescind the second reading and then go into amendments, that then stopped that bylaw from proceeding to public hearing.
Yep, gotcha. Good. Understood clearly now. Thanks very much. All right, then I'll leave it. So I still would like to just postpone this. As I say, we're absolutely inundated with stuff. We've got foothills coming up. We've got 2 more rezoning applications. I really don't think we need to add this to all of that, so.
Okay, additional speakers on this item? Okay, hearing none, I'll move to calling the question. So voting in favor means you're voting and supporting the move, or basically postponing this indefinitely. So all those in favor and opposed, and noting that Councillor Wilson, Councillor Proctor, and Councillor Gusbrack opposed, fails. So now we're back to the motion as it reads at the second, so, and it's already been moved and seconded. So the motion we're on to is that second reading of District of Lantzville zoning bylaw number 180, 2020 amendment, miscellaneous bylaw number 289, or 298, sorry, 2021 be rescinded. So that's what we're dealing with at this point. Discussion on that motion.
Yes.
It's already been moved and seconded.
Yes, it's been moved and seconded. It's on the floor from a previous meeting in January. And if it passes, then it would create the odd situation that the second reading's been rescinded with the anticipation there's going to be amendments, but if you're not going to make amendments, it's a bit moot. Right now, you could withdraw the motion. I think that was the staff recommendation, was to just leave the home business size, automotive repair size as is, and withdraw the motion on the floor. So that would be the staff recommendation.
Point of clarification. I don't think I've ever been more confused than I am right now. So if I could get a bit of an explanation from anyone, that'd be great.
Okay, so through the staff, like, as I understand it, we already have a motion on the floor, and then you're asking us to put another motion on the floor?
Well, there's a motion on the floor to rescind the second reading. And so staff, I guess, as an explanation, has the first clause, I believe, was to explain that leave the parcel size the same. I don't know that you totally need that. If you want to just make a motion to the council withdraws the motion on the floor to rescind second reading, that would achieve the same effect. But then the next step that needs to happen is you can either combine it and say, and withdraw the motion, and further that, the next clause, that the bylaw number 298 be scheduled for an electronic public hearing. So we're looking for the direction from council that you're ready for us to proceed to public hearing. Obviously, it's not going to happen till the fall, but we have to look at the calendar, and so we can't say when.
Okay, so Councillor Gaspar, go ahead.
I think it's rather simple, actually, that if we vote to rescind, then we have to make some decisions. If we vote not to rescind, as the motion on the floor, then we have to move to the staff recommendation, the first part of it, that we retain the 0.8. We don't need the second part because we haven't voted to rescind. And we need the third part, which is that it goes on to an electronic public hearing. So the first question is, do we vote to rescind or not? If we vote not to rescind, then we move on. Is that correct?
Yes, if you vote not to rescind, then you could just jump to the motion that the bylaw 298 be scheduled for an electronic public hearing.
Thank you.
Councillor Savage?
Yeah, since we're dealing with this now, then, if I may speak to the issue, please. So,
Sorry, maybe just to clarify what you're...
well, the reason we're rescinding is to reduce the size of the lot for automotive. And it's very important, since we're discussing it now, that we do so, and we need to rescind to address this. But 2 acres for automotive, I'm just aware of too many people that have been doing automotive in this, and in this economy. First, we had the COVID downturn, GDP decline. Now we're into inflation. It's, for some, I know personally of many people that are working second jobs and so on just to keep afloat. And this is one thing that people with talent do. And these aren't permanent, like, businesses in that sense, but they're people working on the side that have mechanic jobs, and they can make extra money out of their garage fixing locals' cars, and it saves the people doing it that way money. So I know a number of them. That I had one close to me whose house is sold now, but he had a half acre and didn't bother anyone in the neighborhood. He worked on cars in his garage. So I do not want to see people put out of business that have these side businesses on half acre lots, 3 acre lots, 1 acre, 1.5 acre lots. just because they're doing automotive repairs. And it's really, really handy for a town our size to be able to do this right in town, where you can drop your car off and either walk home or get a ride a short distance, instead of the much bigger ordeal of driving into an IMO, dropping it off at a garage, arranging rides, and you'll pay a lot more. So it's just a home business that hasn't bothered people over the years, for the most part, that I've seen. We had a fellow that was whose business was, it was looked into by bylaw, and he ended up leaving because he was not in compliance, and he was on a property that used to be zoned commercial, and it's a big waterfront property, and he was right up near the highway. It wasn't really bothering anyone. So there's an example of what can happen. So if it doesn't work out, you simply, have a mechanism in the business bylaws where if you're causing problems, your license isn't renewed. It's as simple as that. So anyway, I would like to see this tradition in Lantzville continue, where if people are quietly working on cars on weekends, then it's just not a big deal. But 2 acres, I don't know of anyone that's been doing auto repair on 2 acres. That's a pretty big lot. So that's the essence of it. It's about the economy and treating people that have a home business that to date hasn't been a big issue, is looking after them. So that's the essence of it. It's just onerous having it that big, 2 acres. I'd like to see that reduced. So thank you.
Additional speakers on this? So go ahead, Councillor Wilson.
I am aware as well in my particular neighborhood of some individuals that repair vehicles on half-acre lots. What concerns me, and I don't know if there's any mechanisms that can be inserted within Councillor Savage's recommendation, is just, you live on, I want you to picture yourself, you live in Southwind or Northwind, half-acre lot, and somebody's going to open up an automotive repair business, and their property is just strewn all over the place with parts and vehicles. And I know from speaking with very close friends that live in the Southwind, Northwind area neighborhood, that they would be incredibly opposed to seeing that, looking over their neighbors' yards. And one thing I must say I'm super impressed with is I've gotten back into running. I'm running around my neighborhood and just seeing how well kept a lot of the yards are up in the Winds neighborhood. So I guess just something to think of, and I don't know what that number is, but a standard garage is like 20 by 24 feet. I can empathize, if you will, with you, Councillor Savage, as somebody that works a regular job somewhere, and they're mechanically inclined, that they could fix someone's vehicle. But I think that's one thing that I think as a council that we need to be super mindful of, because I believe having a number in mind where people are able to keep the vehicle within their garage is something that we should be super concerned with, to maintain help people maintain their property values. So I'm just going to leave it at that. I don't know what that number is, but just something to think about.
Okay, I have Councillor Proctor and then Councillor Gusselbart.
Thank you. Through you to staff, I'm sorry, I still don't understand what we're voting on. If we rescind this, does the bylaw amendment read that automotive repair is permitted on 0.8 of a hectare?
From my understanding, that is one of the 2 recommendations. So you can go with the staff recommendation, and listed below that, there's also Councillor Savage's recommendation. So there's
So-
two recommendations within the report.
Okay, so
I
through
think that
you,
Director Limshu may want to speak at this point. I don't know if he had
Thank
his hand
you.
up there. Because the motion on the floor is that the bylaw second reading be rescinded. So the rescinding's with the intent of later, after that, Councillor Savage making motions to amend the bylaw.
so if I could just clarify that, if we don't rescind this and we send it to third reading, the bylaw reads that automotive repair would be on 0.8 of a hectare. Is that correct?
Your worship, through the council, perhaps I can jump in now. The bylaw that was proposed by staff initially for first and second reading recommended in the bylaw that the minimum parcel size for automotive repair be 0.8 hectares in area. After first and second reading, there was a discussion raised with respect to the minimum parcel size for that kind of home-based use on a property. The staff report that's before you is addressing direction provided by council, which instructed staff to do a more fulsome report on that particular item. So as outlined in the staff report, we looked at the zoning bylaws for 32 municipalities, and we tried to review communities of similar size, or similar size in terms of population. I should clarify that. Of the 32, only 5 communities actually allowed for automotive repair as a home-based business. In all cases,
point of privilege, Director Limshu, if you
you
could
state your
just
point of
speak a
privilege?
little higher, please. Yep, thank you. I can't hear you, so thanks.
how's this? So as a result of the research that staff conducted with the 32 municipalities, of the 32, only 5 allowed for automotive repair as a permitted home-based business. In terms of the parcel sizes for those particular uses, the smallest was 1 acre, and then it went up from there. I think the other interesting point is that the zoning for that particular home-based business was in rural areas and not in more urban areas or suburban areas, as an example.
Okay, back to Councillor Proctor.
So if I could ask through you to Director Coates, if we rescind this, do we have to make a motion before we schedule the public hearing?
If you rescind, sorry, if you
If
rescind,
we don't rescind the second reading,
Yeah.
do we need to make a motion before we move that it goes to public hearing?
no, you still need to make a motion that the bylaw be scheduled for public hearing. So the bylaw would go as it is, as it's attached to this agenda, and it would be scheduled for a public hearing in the fall.
Okay, I'm sorry, that was so confusing. Thank you very much. So after we voted on this and we start talking about the public hearing, I'll talk about what I think about the size of a auto repair shop. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Gaspard, go ahead.
First of all, I apologize to Councillor Proctor because I was wrong. I thought we had to go to the first part, but that's, if we rescind, or if we don't rescind, we go directly to the motion regarding electronic public hearing. So hopefully you'll accept my apology on that. Staff, went to some trouble to show us what other municipalities are doing. And as Director Limshu pointed out, the municipalities that allowed something less than 2 acres to do automotive repair, we're looking at the District of Mackenzie. We're looking at the Northern Rockies Regional Municipality, the District of Vanderhoof, all beautiful places, but they're all extremely rural. District of Chetwynd, I've been there, it's out in the mountains. So yeah, you're out in the bush. You can do what you want, basically. The problem, as I see it, there's two. One, and there are people in Lantzville that are doing automotive repair. I know one, but he lives on 5 acres, so nobody cares. Can't even see him. Can't hear anything. Because if you're doing automotive repair, at least with combustion engines, you've got to tune them up. You have to run the engine. You've got diesel and gas coming out, depending on how how the tune-up is, and you provide a nuisance to your neighbors. Nuisance. We don't want we've got a good neighbor bylaw. We're trying to get away from that. That's the one problem, is the nuisance factor. The second problem is a little more intricate, and it's you're getting people who maybe have another job, maybe work at a legitimate automotive factory, or they just might be empirical mechanics that, grew up on a farm and know how to do things. They're competing with the businesses that we want in town who are paying taxes, who are getting business licenses, who may be hiring other staff. Those are the sort of businesses that we want, not the guy who clandestinely is running an automotive repair shop that, may run under the radar, maybe doesn't even have a business license. So there's competing interests there. So I think by the saw-off is the 2 acre or 0.8 of a hectare. However, having said that, and having listened to what Councillor Wilson said, the other problem is that, you get cars in, you've got parts, you've taken apart a car, there's parts all over the yard, you might have other people who just drop the car off, and so it gets to be an eyesore. So I would be in favor of expanding the shop space. Right now, under our zoning bylaw, it's 100 meters, I believe, 100 meters squared, 10 by 10 meters. Not a whole lot. So if we're going to do this, I would be in favor of increasing that, make it 200 meters squared, 10 by 20. Then you have room for, storing, you have room for doing the work, you have room for, customers coming in, and a bigger warehouse or a bigger space, would cut down on both the eyesore as well as the noise, because it's going to be inside. It has to be inside anyway. So depending on how we do on this rescinding motion, I would be in favor of making an amendment motion. Now, I don't know if that is going to trigger, well, no, it won't. We're gonna vote on whether it goes to a public hearing or not. But I'll leave that till we deal with the first motion here.
Okay, Councillor Proctor, you've got your hand up.
Thank you. Through you to staff, this is coming back to me now. It's been quite some time since we discussed this issue. It seems to me that there's some obnoxious chemicals involved in auto repair, battery fluids. I don't know. I've never repaired a car in my life. I'm lucky if I get the gas in the right place. But I think when you change the oil, there's fuel, there's stuff that you have to dispose of properly. How will we as a municipality make sure that those environmental concerns are being addressed by these home-based auto repair businesses?
Your worship, through the council, that's actually a good question. Right now we issue business licenses. The applicants are required to provide us with an outline of the kind of businesses that they're conducting. Just like anything, you have folks that are very conscious about, making sure that they follow good practices with respect to how they conduct their business. In particular with auto repair, because you're correct. One of the primary reasons why other jurisdictions don't entertain automotive repair as a home-based business because of those factors: the noise factor, potential for pollution, unsightliness. But I'm pretty sure that if we canvassed around the community, you probably have folks, you would never know that they had an auto repair business being conducted on their property. Whereas there are those that, yep, you know, everybody in the neighborhood knows. And so, as outlined in and so those are primary reasons why those jurisdictions just haven't entertained the automotive repair use as a primary use because of those concerns. I think the other thing that council has to consider, and it's is as outlined in staff report, reducing the minimum parcel size for this type of use potentially increases potential increase in enforcement of these uses. Certainly, the more of these types of uses that we have in neighborhoods, the higher the potential for complaints, which our bylaw enforcement department will have to investigate and follow up on.
Okay, any follow-ups, Councillor Proctor?
No, that's all for me. Thank you.
Okay. Go ahead, Councillor Saab.
Yes, it seems this discussion is just over theory versus reality. So I'm really focusing on reality, that I've seen a number of these in existence without bothering neighbors. It's just a situation we will be putting people out of business as they're found is the problem. So, and the second thing is in terms of chemicals and oil and all that sort of stuff, many of us have worked on our own cars, changed oil many times, changed batteries, alternators, you name it. But so people do that anyway. Many people do this out of their homes. They don't get others to change their oil and so on. So anyway, we've had this discussion before, so I'm not going to say much more. I think our viewpoints are clear, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that, but I don't think we're going to change minds here. So I've made my case. I'm just trying to protect the people that as they're found, they'll be put out of business, that's all. So, but I'd welcome any other size lot or any other ideas, but at this point, that's all I'm trying to achieve. Thank you.
Okay, I was just going to speak briefly, and then I've got Councillor Gusselbrecht next. Yeah, this one has been kicked around, and I don't feel like rehashing my debate on this all that much. I've always been a firm believer in this, anything that's got four walls and you can close the front door and you can't hear it, smell it, taste it, see it, who cares? That's kind of it. I can speak firsthand to having an automotive an auto body repair shop operating next to my property, and that's not great. And especially when the owner is obnoxious and cranks music at night and works with the door wide open till the wee hours in the morning and gets into drunken brawls and all sorts of stuff while burning plastic and other toxic materials. So I can speak to that, and that's why we have bylaws. But similar to that, and again, I argued this last time around with respect to even fine woodworking or woodworking for that matter, and even metal shops and so forth. Again, those have to be contained within the four walls with the door down, because planers make a lot of noise, routers make a lot of noise, and some of the tools used in metalwork also make a lot of noise, and so forth. And then you still have the same issues with the storage of the materials around the property. And I'm not a big complainer about that, but I know of a few in and around where I live, and it's starting to get out of control, and at some point someone's going to phone in a bylaw complaint. But anyways, generally speaking, I support having them on smaller lots. I'm aware of a number of automotive places in town, and this isn't to run a Jiffy Lube out of your backyard or a high production automotive repair facility. This is basically an owner operator deal. This is what we're talking about. We're not talking about someone that's hiring employees and more or less even renting out their space to someone who's just operating automotive repair on their property and bringing in income, right? This is an owner-operator situation. And if it's getting abused, there's noise and unsightly premise and so forth. That's what we have the bylaw enforcement for. So, for myself, as with before, I'll be supporting this. So in fact, I'll be voting down this or voting in favor of the rescinding bylaw or rescinding second reading. So Councillor Gesselbrecht.
Yeah, I think we've had a pretty fulsome discussion. I would move that we call the question.
Councillor Proctor, I notice your hand is still up. I don't know if there's any last minute or I can call the question on whether.
I did have a very brief last minute comment.
If that's okay with the previous speaker, well, otherwise I will have to call the question on whether or not we call the question or vote on calling the question.
No, I'm fine with that. I didn't see your hand.
Okay, go ahead, Councillor Proctor.
I just wanted to point out that I pride myself in being well-grounded and down to earth. And when people disagree with my opinions and accuse me of being unrealistic, not grounded in reality, I find that offensive, probably in contravention of our procedure bylaws. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Gesselbrecht, you've called the question.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. So again, we're voting in favor or opposed to rescinding second reading. So all those in favor of the rescinding second reading and opposed. So noting that Councillor Wilson, Councillor Gesselbrecht are opposed to. Councillor Proctor, were you in favor or opposed? And this is just rescinding.
I'm sorry, I was opposed to rescinding.
Okay, thank you. So noting Councillor Proctor is also opposed that rescinding bylaw or rescinding second reading fails. So, so basically what we have is second reading on the table. So go ahead, Councillor Gesselbrecht.
I move that the District of Lantzville zoning bylaw 180-2020 amendment miscellaneous bylaw number 298-2021 be scheduled for an electronic public hearing.
Okay.
I'll second that.
That's seconded by Councillor Proctor. Discussion. So through the mover and then to the seconder.
I think it's pretty self-evident. Thank you.
And through to Councillor Proctor.
I don't have anything to add. Thank you.
And through to the rest of the council. Okay, Councillor Savage, go ahead.
Yes, I would just like everyone to be cognizant of upcoming public hearings. We've now got a lineup like a airport, a runway. So if this is, I would make it later in September rather than earlier so we can unclog some of this this backup. It's just one after another, after another, after another. And there'll be more too. Don't forget there can be phase development agreement, public hearings. We're just starting with the foothills and so on. And the foothills is a big one. I would like to see it properly so people can really either enjoy what's being presented. They may have some good ideas which will help make it even better. But that's one I really want to see people have a chance to give input on. And so that's what I'm suggesting, is to have it later rather than sooner in September so we can unclog some of this stuff, because there will be right in the beginning of September more things coming up we haven't dealt with yet. Thank you.
Okay, through the council, just noting the time, it is 9:24, so we'll need a motion to extend past 9:30 if that's council's will. Otherwise, we're just going to run out the clock till 9:30.
I would extend for this vote only, but I won't extend for anything else.
Okay. So thank you for that. Through the rest of the council, is anybody prepared to make the motion to extend past 9:30?
I'm not prepared to extend.
All right, so it looks like there's no interest in really extending past 9:30, so we'll continue on with dealing with this. I have nothing to add with respect to the public hearing. So through to Councillor Gesselbrecht, go
I'd like
ahead.
to move that the question be called.
Is there any additional speakers on this before I call the question? Okay, hearing and seeing that, Councillor Savage, has got to be new information, otherwise,
Yes, it is new information. I just wanted to briefly say that I wanted to clarify again that I was opposed to a number of these things in the in this proposed rezoning. So I'll be opposed like I always do. If I don't agree with it, I'll be opposed to it going to a public hearing, as I was opposed to it at first and second reading as well. Thank you.
all right, so I'm going to move to calling the question then. All those in favor and opposed, knowing Mayor Swain's opposed and Councillor Savage is opposed, carries. At this point, through to council, I don't know if we just want to make a motion now to adjourn the meeting. We have literally 4 minutes left. So Councillor Gesselbrecht, are you prepared to make that motion?
Move to adjourn.
Okay, so moved by Councillor Gesselbrecht, seconded by Mayor Swain. I'll simply just move to calling the question. All those in favor and opposed, that's carried unanimously. We are adjourned.